So, welcome to the meeting. We called the meeting to order about 6:30 and went into executive session to talk about two topics, hiring of the new police chief and our contract with BlackRock for the well. And we made a motion to come out of executive session already. And there's Jeff is out of town, but he's joining us via phone. And so we'll come out of executive session already. Do we want to make a motion?
I will make a motion, and the motion is to start employment negotiations with our selected candidate for police chief. Thank you.
So that's a motion and second. So we've gone through a long process, a very good process, led by a committee, and then the select board got involved, and we're ready to make an offer. And once that is done, then it will become public. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye? Aye. And Jeff says aye. I could have asked if there was any more discussion on it. Okay. Next, any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Don't think so. And then any public comment? Nope.
Gonna move right along.
Good.
Our summer
Next
schedule stride.
is, hi Sarah.
Hello.
CSWD, our annual review of the budget. And in our packet, we had a memo from Sarah that really describes all the highlights, I guess, and I'll certainly let you talk about it. But I have to take note, there was a bold statement in there. Was that bold for us?
It was bold.
Yes, it was bold for us, saying that the funds are there to move, continue to move forward for a drop-off center in Hinesburg. Okay,
Yes, I noticed the bold.
so I did notice it was bold. But if you want to just hit some of the highlights.
Yeah, absolutely, and then I'd like to open up to any questions about anything in the budget or any questions you may have. And again, thank you for your time, and thank you for getting me on first on the agenda. I really appreciate that as well. Again, for folks who aren't aware of who CSWD is, we are a municipality created in 1987 via Act 78 to implement solid waste management mandates legislated by the state of Vermont. We function similar to a regional planning commission or a water district or a school district, and that a solid waste district's charge is to design regional solutions to the solid waste challenges faced by our member towns. And we are the largest district in the state. We serve 18 member communities, all happen to be in Chittenden County. We serve about 155,000 people, over 6,000 businesses. We employ around 50 people in administration, finance, operations, compliance, outreach and communications. And we either own, manage, or operate and manage drop-off centers, Environmental Depot, or Rover, which is our mobile hazardous waste collection facility, the materials recovery facility, and an organics diversion facility formerly known as Green Mountain Compost, which I will talk about as well. So this year we are anticipating revenues in the amount of $12,628,865, anticipating expenses in the amount of $11,450,520, adding our capital expenses, capital contributions and allocations of $665,468, which nets us about $331,000. That net will be transferred to our solid waste management fee rate stabilization fund. So we went over the calendar year and into this fiscal year as well. Last year we reviewed three major infrastructure components. So we were looking at our compost facility, our MRF, and our drop-off facilities. We started with compost because, as we know, Act 148 is reaching its final deadline, which is next July, not this July, but next July 2020, is when food scraps will be banned officially from the landfill, from disposal, pending any other changes and or shenanigans that may occur at the legislature. We don't anticipate that happening for this session, but there's always the next session. But we are expecting that it will stay in place. So we knew that we needed to work on Green Mountain Compost, our facility, to make sure that we could be ready to receive what we expect we'll be receiving. Right now, we're expecting this year to have managed 6,000 tons of food scraps. The site was designed to manage 2,500. So we knew, regardless, we needed to make some changes, and all the studies are correct. We could see upwards of 10,000 tons of food scraps at that facility once everything really kicks in. We don't expect that to show up on July 2nd of 2020, but over time, as things are implemented, we do expect to continue to be the largest processor of food scraps in the state. So we knew we needed to make some changes, so we started last year really focusing in on that. This year, we were awarded a grant from the Agency of Natural Resources for $500,000 towards construction. So what that means is that we have submitted a grant to A&R. We're looking at 2 different options for GMC to help us to be able to accept more material. So they are running along, we could do one or the other. One is a little less expensive. One does deal with transfer, though. Well, they both deal with transfer, quite frankly. And we looked there because we realized that we could not continue to operate in a retail market and really focus on compost. We need to go back to our roots, and no pun intended, but get back to our roots with compost and focus on managing organics and managing the leaf and yard debris and the food scraps. And to do that efficiently at that site, we need to match the food scraps with the leaf and yard that comes in, because to make good compost, you need the right amount of greens and the right amount of browns. And there is a shortage of that leaf and yard type material. So we knew as we were getting more food scraps, we were not going to be able to match that with the leaf and yard. So we took a step back and we said, we know we can do this really well if we match this. This will leave an extra amount. What will happen there? Probably transferring. So that's one option. And then the other option we're going to look at is transferring, but with a depackaging system. So talking about basically food that is spoiled from supermarkets or from anyone who prepares food that they may not be able to sell or has gone bad. Right now that's going to the landfill. So in this particular unit it would come there, and it literally separates the organics from its packaging. The organics goes into one area, and they go to a slurry, the packaging goes to the landfill, and then that slurry can either be composted or can be sent to a digester. So there is digester activity happening in Vermont. There's one being built in Salisbury. There's Vermont Tech. There are other potentially on board.
Making energy from the digester.
Correct, from that slurry from that otherwise would have been wasted. So not suitable for donation or for animals. It was only going to be destined for the landfill. Let's keep that out of the landfill and then divert it to energy. So those are the 2 options we'll be investigating over the summer, thanks to receiving this grant. So we know we'll be doing something. So by this time next year, we will be heavy into whatever that next iteration is. And our board does still need to decide what that is. But we're excited for having this path. What that means is that we have reduced, as of July 1, we'll be reducing our products that we produce at the compost facility from 12 down to 3. We'll be producing compost, topsoil, and then a garden mix or a raised bed mix. We'll only be selling that in bulk. We will no longer be bagging. So we'll be working directly with our wholesalers, with our garden center partners that we have now, and keeping the material as local as possible, because that's what we're being faced with. In order to cover our costs, to make our revenue projections, we were being forced to sell the bags further and further and further afield. We were selling to Cape Cod. We were selling to the North Shore of Boston. We were looking at New York City. It was a losing on top of losing proposition, and we could never make enough money off the bags to be able to support that. So in order to rein in our expenses, do things more efficiently and effectively, we literally, again, coming back to home and focusing on Chittenden County and keeping this material that we are making in the county, or at least in Vermont. And we think that we know that that's going to reduce our expenses. Already we're seeing reductions both in staffing and just in the cost of goods sold to make the materials. So we're realizing some efficiencies there already. But it's a transitionary period, so we won't see the full effects for another probably 2 years to 3 years. But this is a big step forward, coming back to a more municipal function rather than trying to maintain a retail function. So that is a big shift for us. And in doing that too, realizing that Green Mountain Compost is our brand. That's what's on the bags, that's what people will ask for, but what we do is we're diverting organics. So we're going to be calling ourselves the Organics Diversion Facility who creates Green Mountain Compost. So the Green Mountain Compost will still be in the marketplace, but as bulk, and you can get it at Garden Supply or Six Agway, wherever you would get other bulk products. So that's the big news about GMC. And it doesn't have a good, ODF doesn't flow like GMC did, so we'll figure that out later, but it's just not as cool. The next big piece that we were looking at was our materials recovery facility, and we talked about this last year, if you remember. The markets have not rebounded. In fact, some of the markets have gone a bit worse, particularly cardboard. So we are now at the lowest average commodity revenue that we've ever been at. It is still a struggle, and we are raising our fee at the materials recovery facility from $55 a ton to $65 a ton, also raising it at compost to $60 a ton. And I want to make sure that everyone knows too that even though we're raising these fees, we are still, quite frankly, a bargain. The disposal fees at a landfill or at any of the transfer stations here in Chittenden County, Casella's landfill up in Coventry, run anywhere between $125 to $150 a ton. So even at $60 or $65, it still makes sense in Chittenden County to divert this material from landfilling. And we want to continue to support those efforts, and we will continue to subsidize where we can, but we also have a responsibility to recover as many of the costs as we can and to continue to provide capital. So because of the loss in market volatility, we are going up to $65 a ton. We also are, do need to continue to try to put some money into the capital. We weren't able to do that this year, so that we kind of stabilize things, but we are going to have to contribute to our capital reserve fund for the MRF going forward. So that is where that is. People have been asking me, well, you've been talking about a new MRF. How much of that tip fee is going towards the new MRF? Nothing. It is only to cover the market losses and to make sure that we can put money into the capital reserve. We are still looking at a new MRF because our MRF, same as compost, was built for 2,500 tons and they're doing 6,000. We were built for 25,000 tons. We're seeing 47,000. We have outgrown that facility. We cannot put in any new equipment there. We can't expand. We can't go up. We can't go out. So we brought to our board a list of criteria, selection criteria. We're looking everywhere in Chittenden County, not just in Williston. And we've identified, I've said 30 to 40 potential sites. Went through the criteria and narrowed it down to about 5 to 8. We hope to narrow that further down to about 2 or 3. So
I think those 5 to 8 were published, right?
Yes, correct,
Yeah.
correct. So we had some there were a few in Milton, there were some in South Burlington, a few in Williston, some in Essex. So we really were committed to finding the best location, not just simply making do with what we had. So we're going to continue to look at those further narrowed down, 2 to maybe 3, bring that to our board with some initial cost estimates. And again, we can get into a little more detail with you now because I'm going to be coming back to all of the communities to talk about bonding. We don't have the cash in the bank to pay for this, even if we use land that we own. So we most likely, if the board does agree to building a new MRF, it will be a bond situation. So we're trying to match that, if it goes through, with the increase of availability of capacity for recyclables in the region. So some of the pressure that's been put on us by China has actually caused some Chinese mills to start to invest in the United States. So there's a mill that's being invested in by one of the Chinese mills in Maine, and that is slated to open up at the end of this calendar year. There are investment in another mill in Maine. There's investment in Ohio and in New York. So in the region, we are looking within the next 2 to 3 years to have increased capacity to accept the most problematic of our current materials, which is the paper and the cardboard. So we're looking to match or marry the timeline for new MRF with that capacity so that we can be able to take advantage of that. So, but over the next year, you'll be hearing much more regularly from me about that project as well. And at the drop-off center.
How does the bond work?
So, right, so the district, CSWD, would be obviously responsible for making all of the payments. And just like any other any other, like a school district bond, each of the member communities would have to vote for that, and would have to agree to, in the event that we could not pay the bond, you would proportionally take on the share of that debt, so according to population.
So take a little risk.
It is a little
But
risk.
the cost, is that, again, added in tipping fees?
It would be a combination, correct, of the tipping fees, of the material sales, and then, you know, we do have the option with the solid waste management fee, that tax on trash, that the thing that's disposed in the Coventry landfill gets assessed
Okay.
as tax. We have the ability to also backfill
To
with that
tax,
too.
yeah, okay.
Correct. So the goal would to not be doing any municipal assessments, no per capita, and no additional municipal assessment, that's the goal. If it gets, if we get down to it and we can't make it work without that, it probably won't work. So we want to be very, you know, honest, frank, open, transparent about that, and not saying, this has to happen, and you might have an assessment, but this has to happen. No, we're gonna be very clear with you about the risk. So we'll be talking more about that over the next 12 to 18 months. And then the other system that we reviewed were our drop-off centers, and, you know, again, as you mentioned right off the bat, Phil, we did put in money for a new facility here in Hinesburg. We have budgeted $350,000 for that. And so the timeline for where we are with that, we finally were able to, once the ground unfroze and the snow went away, although I was worried we were gonna get some snow this week, we were able to contract out with Limero and Dickinson to start doing some of the survey work, and it's in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. They're in the middle of phase 1. Just today, they sent 4 options for design to us to take a look at. So we are now at a place where we can start to really talk with the DRB and say, okay, these are some of the things we're looking at, and really begin that process. So we will be bringing the initial cost estimates to our board at the June meeting. So they will have some initial cost estimates by the 12th, 17th, in there. And pending those estimates, get the approval to go forward. I'm hoping that they're gonna come in where we think they are. Along with that, we would wanna, probably, again, same thing in parallel track, have a lease agreement drafted and worked through, so that we could, you know, make sure that that is part of any permit applications that we have, saying, yes, we have the agreement to for the land of the town, and here's the conditions and all of that. Not anticipating anything different than the lease agreement we had had previously. But that would also be up to our board. I don't think there are any different conditions. It's pretty standard, normal. We might want to do an initial term of 10 years versus the initial term of 5, but then it's usually a 20-year lease. We had done 5 years and then 3 5-year renewals. So we may want to do a 10-year initial term, 2 5-year renewals. But that's completely open for conversation and discussion, but just putting it on your radar screen that will be part of that process as well. So that's coming up too. And so at the other docks, we are implementing a scheduled, some modest fee increases on the bag prices. It came to the end of our 3-year price increase. And so now this year, we're starting another set of price increases, but so 25 cents on an 18-gallon bag, 50 cents on a 33, 25 cents on the 45. So the modest kind of normal increases per bag. Looking also at increasing some of the pricing on things like mattresses, another $1 on furniture. I'm also putting on the radar for all of the communities that this year we only modestly increased the mattresses. We're anticipating and have been told by Casella that they're increasing the pricing on mattresses dramatically the next year. They're going to be charging, instead of by the ton, by the piece. So right now we're paying however much it is by ton. They'll be charging us $15 each. So $15 for a mattress, $15 for a box spring. I don't know if they're going to charge different prices for twin versus king. But then we have our transportation fee on top of that. So we could be looking at a $25, $30 fee per mattress. we're going to take this year and talk to our legislators and say.
This year we'll sleep on it.
Something, well, get a real good mattress now, so if you have a mattress you need to discard it now. And then you've got another 10 years of your mattress life, right, so you don't have to worry about it for 10 years. But we will be talking to our legislators because there are programs in a few other states where the manufacturers have a program similar to our e-waste programs and our CFLs, and see if we can do something like that in Vermont to try to stem that, because that's a huge cost. But again, I'm letting you know, kind of no surprises, this could be coming, but we're gonna work on that as well. And then the other piece that we're bringing back, it's not a new fee, but it's a bringing back, is a $2 fee for customers who bring only recyclables. That's the only thing they're bringing in through the door at the docks. And the reason that we're implementing that is, again, in response to what I talked about with the materials recovery facility. And recycling has never been free. There's always been a cost associated with managing that material. And right now, if all you have are bringing your recycling to the docks, you don't pay a charge, because our trash customers are subsidizing that recycling only customer. Well, that recycling only customer has generated that waste, so the feeling is they should pay something to help manage that waste. There will not be an additional fee on the per bag other than the 25 cents or the 50 cents. Their costs are still embedded in that fee. So if they're bringing in trash and recycling and trash and their food scraps for all three, it's just that one bag fee that still covers all of those products. It's only if you're bringing in a blue bin or 4 or 5, and it's $2 per trip. So you can bring in 1, 2, 3, blue bins.
Up to a cubic yard.
Up to a cubic yard, and it's $2. That's still less expensive than if you have subscription service, then you're paying $35 to $40 a month for that. It's still, I think, a good deal. But that is something that we've been getting a lot of conversation about, obviously, as you can imagine, that it's not brand new, it's just hasn't been used in about 10 or more years. So it's new to some folks. So those are the highlights. Again, we're not anticipating increasing that tax on trash, the solid waste fee, that's going to remain at $27. We are looking at a modest increase in that as far as the tonnage going up, and we're working through why tons keep going up.
So that was interesting to see.
Yeah, and we've got some money in the budget this year for a study to try to help us, are we missing something? Is there something we can identify that we can focus and target in on and address. Economy is good in Chittenden County. People are building, people are working, and we see that all the time when the economy dips, trash numbers dip. People don't replace things because they can. They hold on, they fix. We are still, actively supporting fix-it cafes, and we talk about waste reduction all the time.
Which we have a big one coming on
That's
Saturday.
right, exactly. Yep.
Right.
Exactly. We publicize that on our Facebook page, and we tweet about that, and so we're looking for ways to help people remember you can fix things. You don't have to just buy things, and then talking about consumerism. But it's we can have all the waste reduction programs in the world, and
but the education piece, I think, we see it every time associated with CSWD is that education piece, so that's important.
Yeah, and we're going to continue and try to find different ways to get to people and different programs and try to get a better handle on that.
And it's good to see the Rover continues and the collection of household hazardous waste continues for free, which is good.
That's right,
Yeah.
and there's a difference there, because we want to keep that toxic stuff out of the environment, period. And we do get a grant from the state to help offset some of those costs, but it is an expensive
There's a
program.
cost,
But
yeah.
our board is very, very supportive and thinks it's incredibly important.
All right. I just want to acknowledge that Lynn Gardner here and our other rep, Roman. Doug, sorry. Did you guys want to add anything?
I think Sarah covered everything. We've all heard it a number of times.
Yeah, and questions from the board?
So with the Hinesburg drop-off center being closed for an extended period of time, how does that show up in the budget? Presumably there's less money coming in because there's less revenue coming in. Maybe some of those people, you see it show up in other drop-off centers, but maybe those others are moving, since we're on the edge of the county, move to other areas. How does that impact the budget that we're looking at now?
Yeah, so where we see, it was interesting, because really for Hinesburg, about 80% of the customers are Hinesburg residents, and about 20 are Moncton or, Starksboro, some from Charlotte, and a few from Shelburne, not too many, but some from Charlotte. So either the Hinesburg residents have been using Williston or South Burlington. A lot of people are coming to Williston, and which is great because you can bring a lot more stuff to Williston. So we've seen some migration there, so we didn't lose that revenue, it just moved to a different drop-off center. But some people did hire haulers, so we know that. So that revenue is either gone permanently because now they like the convenience, or temporarily when it comes back. So there was a dip in this current fiscal year's budget in the revenue because we did anticipate a little bit of a loss. It wasn't that much. It was less than 10% on the dock budget as far as the loss. We didn't lay off our employees who worked at Hinesburg.
That was my other question, is
No.
what happened to your staff?
Oh, no, we kept,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So Charlotte kind of, bopped around. She worked a lot at Richmond this year, but she would also work at Williston. Judson worked a lot at Williston, so we maintained them and we made a commitment to them. If you want to stay with us, we want to keep you because they're
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So certainly the community is really excited about having the drop-off center rebuilt and replaced and put back into service. On a lot of people's perception of this, myself included, it seemed as if the district got caught off guard by the fact that we were building a garage there and that we would be going through this process, in that there is such a large gap of no service. And I'm looking for some reassurance that what we're talking about now and what this budget speaks to and what you just spoke to is actually going to happen in the timeframes that we're talking about here.
Yeah, so again, that's why I made sure to mention, we have engaged Monroe and Dixon, and they're doing their work. They have, like I said, given us these 4 preliminary drawings. It is on the June agenda. So from our standpoint, our process is progressing. Residents can check our website. We have a Hinesburg page on our website where we post updates regularly, so we're posting them there. We invite anyone
That's
who
the
wants to.
frustration, though, is like this process that you're engaged in somehow is out of line with what we have done up there, and that's the frustration that the residents express to me.
Well, we're always clear that it was going to be probably 18 months of a closure from when we actually closed to when we come back. So it may end up being a few months later than what we had hoped. So if everything falls into place perfectly, our goal is to be back in the fall. If it doesn't,
So the 18 months
was from when we first
communication, I
closed.
think, came sort of late, I think. And so people anticipated something a lot quicker, let's say. I don't know, everybody had different expectations. But we're closing, and we'll see in 18 months, could have been stepped back, like a year prior. In a year, we're closing and we'll be closed for 18 months, as opposed to in December, basically the message went out to the community on December, whatever the date was, and then we're closing for 18 months. And I think that caught a lot of people by
That's
surprise.
a valid point, and I do apologize for that.
Yeah.
And you're right, we think we could have communicated that much better, more regularly, more clearly. Just one of the reasons I'm being as explicit as I can with you, knowing that, again, we don't control a lot of things. We didn't control the weather, we don't control some of the other permitting aspects. But you're right, we could have been much more overt and clear as soon as we knew something. And I think we were possibly caught a little bit off guard too, and maybe not brought in as closely as we should have, and maybe that's on both of us, to say, okay, we need to be walking hand in hand here, and I think we're walking maybe a little out of step, perhaps.
Are we there now?
Well, it's been a while since I've talked to Renee, and it's been a while since I've talked to Bill, but we haven't had much to update on
Yeah.
until this week.
What can we do to make sure?
Well, I think is making sure that Lynn and Doug are as clued in as possible, and that they're keeping you clued in. We could certainly set up regular meetings, we can meet every 2 weeks if we want to, I mean, there's a whole host of
Maybe
things
as
that
it
we
gets
can do.
closer, that
Yeah.
might be good to keep the ball rolling. It sounds like you've got the preliminary design happening, and then the budget, they'll come up with budget estimates. That'll be an important milestone, because
Exactly.
you want it to be within the budget.
Correct.
And then it'll go to the board, the executive board, to make that, the whole board.
The whole board.
The whole board. And does it feel like the board is behind this budget and moving forward?
I believe that they are.
Okay,
So
good.
There are several members that are maybe not, but
Yeah.
I think there's the votes to pass it.
So this budget was approved unanimously,
Okay,
this budget including that line item.
Sure.
Obviously with the caveat that if the estimates come in at $1 million,
yeah.
It's a different story.
it's a different story.
Yeah.
We don't anticipate that being the case.
And at the point we get the preliminary design, we'll have a good knowledge of what to expect there. I mean, I think we've had some public meetings, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think generally people said, just come back, give us the basics, we didn't want any bells and whistles, so at that point, when the preliminary design comes in, we'll be able to see, okay, this is kind of what it's looking like.
Right, exactly. And really, the key issue that I think we've all been talking about really has been traffic and entrance and egress. And that has been the DRB's concern right along, really, I think their main concern. Right from the start, and that's completely valid. So that is what we're working through with the consultant right now, and the engineers, to say, okay, what are some of the options?
How do people flow through? and-
Exactly, safely, to not back up on the road, because we are so much closer now to the road than we were before, so that is the key concern.
Yeah.
And then stormwater is
Yeah.
another key concern. So
Well,
those are
yeah.
two pieces
Yeah.
that we really need to make sure that we get right.
So my understanding is the design for the new town hall has sort of taken the stormwater in, the expectation that you're gonna be there.
Yeah,
And we just got a grant for, how much? 3, 4?
For the,
For restoring that.
Restoration of
Yeah,
the
restoration of that stream there,
Do you anticipate the possibility of an additional day with the new facility in Heinsberg?
well, that'll be
Being
something
part-
that we absolutely want to look at as well.
Yeah.
So, and looking at, it is the only one that's a one-day
Yeah.
service in our whole system.
It's a
And
brand new
we're-
facility. It'll be beautiful. Everybody wants to see it.
And everyone's gonna want to go.
Go there, exactly.
Yeah, so.
There might be some demand because of that.
There could be, and, but again, because it really is mostly local residents who use it.
Yeah.
But we have been hearing from folks in Charlotte who really want to have it back as well. So it's certainly something that we want to look at, and it fits in, see how does it fit into the overall drop-off center system? And we're looking at that as well. But we recognize that conversation, the system conversation, has to almost be set over here, because this is almost on its own timeline, right?
I've just
So-
encouraged you to look at it.
Yeah,
Sounds
no,
like we
well,
were-
we have been, and that's a factor, and, we're just not sure if it would bring in more customers, or people then just split.
right.
It's like, oh, it's more convenient for me to come on a Wednesday, so I'm just gonna, they're normally Saturday, and
Yeah.
they'll be on Wednesday, so we don't have a sense yet. We can do some surveys and see,
You'll figure it out.
well, would you be more likely to
Mm-hmm.
use 2 days a week, and, so there are certainly things that we can look into,
First, I want to really thank you for coming and explaining this so clearly and laying out all the details. We have been waiting a long time, anxiously, so it's great to hear all this, and I'm thrilled that you're coming back. The $2 fee for the recyclables, I think, is going to be a huge change for a lot of people, certainly for me. So I just encourage you to be really public about it beforehand.
So just say it's $2 fee if you haven't brought any trash.
Yes, I
Okay.
understand, yeah.
We find that it is for, again, folks who have some overflow material, who for some reason missed a pickup, if they have a subscription hauler and there's a holiday or something and they just have more than they anticipated, if they have a smaller recycling cart for some reason. So it's only about 45,000 trips throughout the entire year that are recycling only, and we do hundreds of thousands of.
Maybe I'm unusual. I used to go once a week with just recyclables, so I won't be doing that. I'll just let it build up.
Yeah, you
But
can save it up, right, and it's
exactly,
$2
so,
$50.
so I just, all I'm saying is be proactive about getting that out. And along those lines, this is probably way beyond anything that you have control of, but you say cardboard is challenging now, and there's so much packaging that's unnecessary.
So here's some good news as well. I'm glad you brought that up. So the General Assembly, the legislature, is looking at a bill right now. You may have heard about the plastic bags and the plastic straws. Part of that bill is also a study commission on paper and packaging, so extended producer responsibility for paper and packaging, or for packaging. We might be able to wrap in paper, but for looking at packaging. And there's, no one in the United States has done this. In Canada they do, in Europe they do, in Asia they do, where manufacturers are either charged, if you are packaging something in plastic that can't be recycled, it's PVC, and you can't recycle that anywhere. Well, you're gonna get charged this surcharge. If you're packaging it in something that's readily recyclable, you get a lower tax. That's one model that they do in Europe. So, if this bill is signed by the governor, and it looks like it will be, then that working group will be happening this summer to look at some kind of a extended producer responsibility scheme for packaging. So that could certainly help. Asking folks to shop local. It's the Amazon effect, right? So we have so much cardboard,
That's right,
so many
yeah.
folks are shopping online, and it's a great convenience, you can get so much more, et cetera. But it adds to the problem. And so, also, once this capacity comes online in the region, we would really love to be working, there's one mill left in Vermont, in the southern part of the state, we would really love to be working with them. They're having some struggles right now, so anything that we can do to help keeping that material as local as possible, we want to do. That means getting our quality really high. They would love to accept the mixed paper. So right now, that market is in a downturn. That should come back up. Cardboard has always been pretty strong, but it's a momentary dip. The tariffs on China aren't helping. So there's a lot of political stuff, as you mentioned, we have zero control over. And we are part of a global system. And it's no denying that and getting away from that.
Well, I encourage you to put that in your literature to encourage us all to be local.
Absolutely.
I build up tons of boxes from Amazon.
Many of us do, myself included. It's just, yes, agreed.
All right, I'm just looking at the time. Any other
Yep.
comments? Jeff, anything from you? No?
There?
So, if, we appreciate you coming and your thorough discussion, and of course, we anticipate you coming again, but we also anticipate the CSWD drop-off center coming at some point, so, great. Thanks a lot, yeah. Thanks, Lynn.
I make
Thanks,
a
Doug.
motion to approve our budget.
Oh, okay. Good point. So we have that in our packet. And is there a motion to approve the budget as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
Discussion is Jeff he sends his apologies, he had to drop from the line.
Okay.
Let the notes show he dropped at 7:34
All right.
PM. So he is unfortunately unable to finish the discussion.
So we have the motion for the budget. Any discussion on it?
Other than that, no.
Thanks, Lynn, for reminding us. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that motion passed.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
appreciate your time. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Dan for the Planning Commission. Come on up. Dan Meyer, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Meyer, yeah,
Thank you guys for coming.
thanks.
Do you want us to sign in?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So if we appoint you, can we call you Dan with the plan?
Hey, very nice to meet you. Both of you. I noticed.
It's a good one. I like that.
So in our packet, we have the form you filled out, and we appreciate that. And there was a link to your LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this would be a replacement for Jeff, who has had to step down. and it's a planning commission, and it looks like it would go till January 21, right? Yeah.
Is this right there, this is Jeff's replacement?
Correct.
I thought Dan
I-
had applied a while ago for an open seat.
Yeah,
No, this
Oh.
is Jeff's replacement,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah,
but
So he applied prior to the election,
no, he
didn't
applied,
he?
It was right around.
right after the
around,
election, yeah,
to, what did he apply to?
for the seat,
Planning commission.
when Jeff,
Okay, so
Was
he's been here before, applying for that seat and
no,
never.
he just
No.
put his application in,
Oh, I see, but we
his
didn't.
interest, and so when Jeff was ready to
Oh, I
step
see.
down,
Okay, okay,
so I checked in with Jeff, he was ready
I
to
see, okay,
step
thank you,
down.
thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, any questions? Do we have any questions for Dan?
I have my comment of appreciation, certainly, for doing this. I mean, I served on that board. I think you did as well. You did?
No, I
Did you?
didn't,
No?
no.
Did you at one time, Marilee, serve on
No,
the
I
planning commission?
didn't.
It's a lot of homework.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. You get to really dig into a lot of topics that that maybe you wouldn't in another role. You get to future think a lot. You know, you get to project plan, of which you described
Yep.
to some degree in your application. You might know some of the people on the board already or not, and you will certainly get to know them because it is a very collaborative effort.
Yeah.
You know, and an effort that isn't necessarily one that you have to agree on, and it's important that everybody kind of comes to this board and brings something to it. It is truly one of these boards that the individuals make a greater impact than just as separate, and that sort of collaborative, independent thought and creative thinking, rational thinking, and project planning are all really key elements to keep in mind as you work through it. And I really encourage you to dig into, if we put you on the board, to dig into the work and to find your space within it. Probably not everything that'll come your way is going to completely captivate you, but there will be items that I really encourage you to really dig into, and then find others that are of the same mindset and really take off with it, because it's really fun work. It's really fun work. And maybe you could speak to that a little bit about what your impressions of what I'm talking about are.
Well, yeah, I mean, everything that you just said, you know, it sounds familiar to what we did on the water and wastewater. You know, we did do a lot of research, and I felt it was a real collaborative effort, and you know, that's why I was interested in the planning commission, because I wanted to continue doing that and take it to the next level. And like you had mentioned, you know, the planning commission, I think, would probably be that next step. And so, you know, everything that you just said is, you know, I'm really excited to hear that.
Yeah, and I'd like to say thanks for stepping up. And
Yeah,
this
I'm
is great.
excited
Yeah,
about the opportunity. Yeah.
it's always good to see people wanting to get involved in Hinesburg, and that's really what makes things happen. So,
Yes.
any other comments?
Yeah, no, I'm sure he'll do a good job. He was very committed to the wastewater committee, so.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to appoint Dan Myra to the Planning Commission with until January,
Term ending 1/1/21.
yeah, term ending, yeah, January 2021. It's hard to even say
Yep.
2021.
Second.
It's crazy. Okay, second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So thanks a lot. I
Yeah,
really
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you all. I'm
And
looking
come here
forward to it.
anytime. Yeah, and come here anytime with the committee or anytime you have suggestions for us, for
Okay.
sure. Yeah,
That sounds great.
good.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Yeah,
Dan.
thanks, Dan.
They'll give you a hat and T-shirt on your way out.
There you go,
It's a great idea, we should do that.
little door prize,
Yeah.
and send them,
Actually, Alex does really fill him up with a lot of stuff. There's a whole binder, and he's going to get a lot.
Yeah, but
Not a hat.
Next,
right.
we just talked about trying to reduce our trash and consumer goods. Next item is VLCT passive presentation and question and answer opportunity. Do we get this on an annual basis?
I think they're doing this,
We can do this however you want it. We
Yeah.
work for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty of it. It's nice to see local government at work here, just appointing new municipal officials, so that's what we're all about. I'm Fred Sadik, I'm Deputy Director of Underwriting Loss Control. This is Larry Smith, Manager of Member Relations. We're with Passive, and the beauty of Passive is that it's owned by our municipal members. So-
And it's just Vermont?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is,
Just municipalities.
it was, there's a section in statute that carves it out, so actually technically we are an instrumentality of a municipality. So we're not a municipality per se, but we're the passive part of it. So we're part of VLCT, but passive is actually its own trust, which is the Property and Casualty Intermunicipal Fund. So that's the insurance part of VLCT. It has its own board of directors, which are made of select board members, municipal officials, managers, finance directors, and in fact, I'll just share with you that we're probably going to have a board opening, and so all municipal officials are eligible for that, and it's a great way to, one, learn about the insurance operation, but also to have a voice in how the fund is managed, understanding rates, the rate setting process, the financial security of the insurance program that we offer, direction in terms of program offerings, all that kind of good stuff. So if any of you have an interest in insurance, I would encourage you to apply, and there's a nomination process, and I think there'll probably be something going out. The board will be discussing that at our next meeting at the end of the month, so there'll probably be something going out after that. And I guess before I start, I mean, I know you've already had, a lengthy meeting, so we certainly want to watch that. As part of our discussion, is there anything that you want me to touch on with regard to your insurance program, just to make sure that we cover it?
Well, and we have our workers' comp.
Yep.
Under you
And
guys.
Renee had
and-
mentioned that.
Yeah,
We're gonna spend
and
some
we've
time.
sort of struggled with that a little bit, and, we've put together a good safety program. Renee and the town employees have been taking it seriously for the last 3 years, and so I think, not only do we not want accidents and whatnot, but, and I think you folks have been helping in that program
Oh, yeah.
too, so,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'll take whatever, that kind of help we can get. Certainly, I think we're certainly open to it too.
One thing we talked about is meeting again before you set the rates or set our experience mod in June. So kind of talk about if there's anything left open that we should be discussing or anything different that we can be doing.
Who sets the mod rate?
Yeah, so, I can probably jump into that, because that was one of the things, Renee said that there was interest, and so I can explain kind of that process so you understand what goes into it. So, just like the commercial marketplace does, the commercial insurance for workers' compensation uses something that's called the National Council on Compensation Insurance, which is NCCI for short. And that is an organization to which all commercial carriers report all the workers' compensation claims, so they collect all the claims data, and from that they develop estimated loss rates for different class codes. And when I mean class codes, think of it as there's a highway class code, there's a law enforcement class code, there's an administrative class code, there's water, wastewater class codes. So each one of those, if you think about it, has a different level of
Risk.
injury potential.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody working in the office, has a different risk for injury than does a police officer that has to deal with, combative suspect or try to arrest somebody that's, resisting or whatever the situation may be. So they promulgate these things called expected loss rates, and so they file that with the state of Vermont, and then Vermont adopts those in April every year. So we use those expected loss rates and calculate your experience mod exactly the same way that the commercial marketplace does. So that would be thing one. And so currently your experience rate is a 1.49. So what does that mean? Yeah, I mean, so
Pretty high.
you're paying for some claims, and essentially it's a rating of your experience compared to what the expected loss rates are. And so I did do some digging, and so and first of all, a 1 is an average month.
Right.
So essentially, it's kind of the multiplier on your contribution. So you're paying 49% more than if you were just average. If you want to think of it that way. I mean, I think, we are trying to mitigate the impact of that, so we do have some other things that we can do. There's some credits that we can apply, and we do that because of like the efforts that you're making. And so it's not exactly a 1-for-1, but you kind of get the sense, though, you're paying a lot more than if your injury experience was just average. So just kind of from a comparison perspective, the 3-year expected losses in total to have just like say a 1 mod, a unity mod we call it, would be $66,000 worth of claims. And it does matter if there's lost time claims, where like somebody's out of work and we have to pay them lost wages, or it matters if they're medical only claims, because those count a lot less in the mod calculation. So huge opportunity for every municipality is to do everything they can. If you have somebody that, maybe has just a minor injury and they might only be out of work for a limited period of time, a few days, a week, because we have to then pay them if they're out, it makes it a lost time claim, and you pay a lot more than actually the cost of the claim. Conversely, if it's a medical only claim, in the long run, it costs you a lot less. So the moral of the story is to try to use transitional return to work at every opportunity to try to keep your claims medical only whenever you can, because that's money in the bank for you. So I said the average or the expected losses were 66,000. So for the current period, for 2019, the losses that went into the calculation were 249,000. So you can see you're like way over the expected. So I've also tried to look ahead and say, well, what does 2020 look like? So we'll be calculating that mod in middle of July. And the losses kind of we take a snapshot of what the losses are essentially on July 1st. And so once that happens, we'll have the final numbers and we can develop the mod. So I looked at them as of the other day, and so the losses that would go into that period for the 2020 period are the 2016, 17, and 18 years. So you drop 2015. Of course, 2015 there were no losses that year. 2014 you had a bad loss, but that one's already off your experience, so you're not paying for that in any way anymore. So you would have $161,000 of losses that would go into the calculation compared to the expected dollar 3-year losses kind of changes every year when the NCCI does their filing. So, usually it goes up a little. So, say it's 68, 70,000 ballpark. You're still kind of way over. So if you do Fred's estimate, I would say that, you're at a 1.49 now. It's going to come down, but you're not going to get close to 1 yet. You're still going to be, it's probably going to be somewhere around a 1.3. So you're going to see some savings in 1/1/2020 renewal. Beyond that, though, the picture gets even brighter. I mean, and so then this is where you just need to keep doing the things you're doing. And I mean, I haven't spoken about the things that Renee and the team here has been doing, but hopefully you're all aware of that. Designated medical provider, you've kind of put that in place, and I think we'll see how that works. I mean, ideally we like it when people use occupational health providers, but it's a good start, and you see how that works. If it doesn't pan out, well, there's somebody 14 minutes down the road that we would point you to. You have the safety committee, as you talked about, where employees are engaged. You're working on a transitional return to work program. So, all those things are starting to get you results. And, knock on wood, 2018 was a zero loss year, so that, and it should stay that way. So that's really good news. And I won't even say the good news, what 2019 is doing, because I don't want to
We don't want
jinx
to do
it.
that. Yeah, we don't talk about that.
But keep that up, because
Yeah.
your experience mod is trails.
Yes.
And so you need to maintain doing all the good things as good as you possibly can and keep your foot on this, because if you do, then you get rewarded at the end. And that's really what it's all about. Potentially in 2021, your mod, you'll see a credit mod, which could go under one. And then there's some more significant savings, some more
Good.
robust savings there on your workers' compensation. So I think really the moral of the story is, keep doing what you're doing. Take advantage of everything that we offer. Larry's gonna talk about, some of the HR consultation thing. I know you've done some work with Jill Muir. We have just tremendous HR consultation resources available for town, and maybe there's some workers' comp benefit to that, but really, employment practice liability, claim avoidance, not making, bad termination decisions or abrupt decisions, having good performance management, good job descriptions, good hiring, all that stuff. You're a big enough town, you want to do that well, and so she's just a tremendous resource to help you with that. Because, we know that towns just, you don't have an HR director, you don't have your own law enforcement consultant that can come and provide guidance to a chief, but
Yes, we do.
but
We
you
have both
do.
of those things.
But you do have a law enforcement
Right.
consultant, that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
beauty of
okay,
it.
right.
You have us, and we are your consultant, and so that is, as you can see, it's so much more than an insurance program.
Yeah, I think we understand.
Yeah.
Many times as we're talking, we're like, Renee will bring it up, or we'll bring it up, VLCT, let's check with them, see what resources they can provide us, so we
Right.
understand that, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that, that you went through a competitive bidding process and you stayed with us, and clearly, you saw the value in what we bring to the table, and we work very hard to maintain that level of trust. I can tell you, every day, my staff and myself, and we work for you. You are who we serve. And, I had a call from a finance director from one of the cities the other day, and it was 4:45, and says, "Oh, good, you do work late." and he had, a question about a big builder's risk project that they're doing, a $32 million project, and he wanted some help with an insurance question. It's just that kind of stuff. So let me just see if there was anything else I wanted to touch on the workers' comp side. We covered what I think your mod is going to go to. And I wouldn't want to say, well, you're going to see $10,000 savings
right,
next
we get
year,
that.
but you could. Obviously, the rates factor into that too, so we won't know what the rates will be doing. We go through an actuarial process where they look at all of our members. Again, we're rated on all the losses of all the municipalities, and so it just depends on what they come up with for numbers. The rates seem to be stabilizing now, which is a really good thing. And as you know, there were some contribution credits that were returned to members last year, which helped to offset your contribution. And right now the financials and the additions to surplus are looking good. So we'll see what the board may decide to do when it comes time. But I would say there's potential for more contributions for the 2020 renewal.
What percentage of municipalities and towns are in VLCT in the passive insurance versus other ones?
Great question.
I think it's like about 93,
Okay.
93.7% of all
Yeah.
villages, cities, and towns. And then obviously we have a number of special purpose districts as well, such as solid waste districts,
Yeah.
fire districts, and so forth.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of those that, I wouldn't say a lot of those, but there's some of those that we don't have. Either they're very small or they're with other programs, planning commissions. But currently we have 347 members.
93.6.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go. Well, I was close. I said 93.7. So, and our total, the total contribution, again, this is just Vermont, all Vermont municipalities, is about 25.7 million of annual contribution. It's, roughly evenly split between workers' compensation and property and casualty.
Okay.
So, is there anything else on the workers' comp piece? I mean, if I had to give you one additional thing that, you know, to kind of keep your foot on the throat of workers' comp and, you know, best practice would be to implement a kind of an internal incident review process where, you know, I mean, I've been doing safety and risk management for a long time, and so one of the best practices is to, you do kind of, not an investigation, but we'll call it an injury review, and you involve supervisor, department head, whatever the next level of management is in that, and you do that in a very timely way, and so there's multiple benefits to doing that. You engage the supervisor in the issue, you check for credibility. Who knows the employee, what they should be doing, their personal life better than the supervisor? Maybe some coworkers, but from a management perspective, that's the person you want to doing it. And, you know, the supervisor usually has some ability to affect change or implement immediately change a procedure, piece of equipment, bring something, if it's a budget issue, can bring it to Renee, come to the board, and, you know, kind of get things moving. And so that would be an opportunity to implement an internal incident review kind of a policy, use a form, train supervisors to do that kind of interaction with injured workers. And it's not like you have a lot of injuries that it's going to be taking up a lot of staff time, but it's a really valuable process. And that is something that Jeff can basically help walk you through the whole thing. We have forms for that, that you can adapt for your needs and basically, you know, really help you through that whole process. So that would be, you know, that would be my one recommendation. If you could do anything else, I would say doing that. But really, you know, I applaud the town for you know, the way that you realize. I mean, it's cost. There's a cost to it. You guys recognize that, and you really have jumped on it. So I mean, we wish. I mean, frankly, we wish, you know, there were other members that had similar situations that did not tackle it as aggressively as you have. So, you know, thank you for doing that. So I think with that, I'll turn it over to Larry, and maybe he'll outline, you know, some of the other services. And you may be familiar, and if we bore you, then you can just, you know, kick us out. But, you know, that's fine. That's your prerogative.
So it sounds like you're pretty familiar with the services that we do provide. I'm going to leave behind, it's called a passive distinctions. I don't know if you have that. I see that you have our annual report. I've brought extras if you want some of these too. This will kind of go over the financials and the whole passive and verb, if you want to look at that. And then this year, this distinctions will go over the services that we provide as being a passive member. So one of the things that we do provide, and you have taken advantage of it last year, and it looks like you applied this year, and you probably don't know yet, but you did get approved for that grant. So it's a grant and scholarship program. So last year you took advantage of it. I think you got right around $3,400. This year you applied and were awarded $32. So you'll be getting a letter here shortly outlining that. But you do take advantage of it. That's what it's there for. It's to help you try to you know, mitigate risk or get things that will help with your safety.
Good.
So so there's the passive grant and scholarship. I don't show that you've ever taken advantage of the scholarship program. You know, we'll pay up to $2,500 if you wanted to send, say, a group of folks to a
safety training or something like that.
If you wanted to send somebody individual, we'll pay up to $500. If you wanted to have maybe somebody come here and do a training, we pay up to $2,500 for that.
I mean, I'll say like a game of logging training. We have had some claims from like cleaning up storm damage, down trees, road crew. There's been a couple of near misses, and then there was a very severe claim that we had in one of our towns a couple of years ago. Again, that's essentially it's 100% reimbursement of the $2,500, and so we have had some towns take what we call the game of logging class, and there's a level 1 and a level 2, and it's 10 persons per class, and pretty much if you do a level 1 and a level 2, it ends up costing you about $2,700 minus our $25. It costs you $200 for 2 days of training, and you can send either your road crew and sometimes, you can also have other towns, if you can't fill a class, nearby towns, whether it's Moncton or Starkville or whoever it is, are all passive members, they can come as well. Sometimes volunteer fire department,
Yeah, I was just gonna
that's
say.
another option. Have them go through the training, and then just on that same topic, and I'll turn it back over to Larry, is that Vermont Local Roads is also doing some of these trainings regionally, so those are very valuable trainings, and just, whenever possible, just because of the
Take
risk.
advantage of it.
Yeah, because of the risk, that's really my big, I don't want people to get hurt, and we have had some claims, so just, please take advantage of those whenever the opportunity arises.
Yeah, what I normally say, it's a very simple application, it's a one-page application, and if you see something that you would like to send somebody to, and you just don't know if it's gonna, we'd pay for it, just give us a call. I mean, that's what we're there for,
And
so.
so it's not a specific time of year that you apply for that, you can,
It-
when there's something that comes up?
Scholarship is year-round.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
the
the only
grant is
caveat with
twice a
that
year.
is-
Right.
Yeah, the only caveat with the scholarship is that we want to have all the reimbursements to you. Basically, you need to complete it before the end of the year, the training, and then the reimbursement we close by the end of January, just because we need to close our books. But that's the only caveat on that.
So, yeah, the other program, so we pay for drug and alcohol testing on your behalf, so all of your, we'll call it CDL drivers
Yeah.
are in our consortium. We help you with that whole process. Really does take a lot off your plate. If you were to try to do that yourself, it's, could be time consuming.
Yep.
So, pre-employment testing, and then, if somebody were to test positive, you can always, you can give us a call, we can help you through that process. We do pay for an EAP,
Yeah.
Employee Assistance Program for you, that you can take advantage of, or they can take advantage of at that point in time. So, part of having a law enforcement, we'll say, operation is, especially in today's world, you could have some high claims. So we do have that high limit, $10 million limit. And to be honest, just recently this happened. It wasn't a law enforcement claim, but, we do hear occasionally, like, is $10 million, that's too much. Well, we just recently had a claim. It was an accident, unfortunate, and in fact, I think the individual might be a paraplegic at this point. But it almost pierced 10 million, it was $9.2 million. So it's really helping the town cover their finances, because if we didn't have those limits, then the town would have to potentially get a bond or try to raise it in tax, through the taxpayers, and we don't want to have that happen, so.
And we were able to settle that favorably because, had it gone to court, the potential was that it could exceed our $10 million general liability limit of coverage, and then the municipality would have been responsible for any judgment over that.
Yeah.
And so then that goes right directly to the taxpayers, and so we were with our reinsurers, which is, again, that's the passive is structured, so it's not like we took out our checkbook and wrote $9.2 million.
Right.
There is substantial reinsurance there, so we limit our exposure to risk by reinsuring that, and ultimately protecting all of yours surplus by doing that. But that was a successful resolution. And there was another claim in Connecticut, I think I read about a couple weeks ago, a law enforcement claim. It was a $20 million settlement. So high limits are, moral of the story. Yeah.
I'm just looking at our times.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll
What are
just-
the other highlights that
there's
we
only a
should
couple
know?
One
things
other
I
bullet,
really wanna-
Larry. One other bullet.
I really want to point out is, so we did hire a law enforcement consultant, so Trevor Whipple. I know that you might be in the process of hiring a new chief. Definitely take advantage of Trevor's expertise. He can work with the chief, come up with best practices, look at your policies, procedures. But that's what he's there for. He was a chief. He's familiar with that whole process and can help you through it. So
I have already talked to him and let him
yeah.
know that
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we
there's
understand, you know, we
strategy.
want to have those good policies
Yeah.
and people following the appropriate policies help
Yeah.
protect us and provide better service that way.
Right, and when you
Consistent
have a new
service.
chief, you know, especially if your individual has not been a chief before in Vermont, Trevor will be an invaluable resource to him or her. And we've had some other new chiefs in some municipalities really in the last few months, and he's a huge help to kind of get them oriented, what's critical, what's not critical, policies. It's all about good policies, so he's a huge resource for you. So I know you'll take advantage of it.
Yeah,
So everything that, you know, I've talked about, some of the programs
Right here.
that we do offer is all in that booklet that I'm passing out. That way I'm not gonna take up any more of your time. But, talks about our law enforcement consultant, the HR consultant, loss control services, the EPL assistance program that we now offer. Everything's in there, so if you have any questions, you can always refer to that, or
Okay.
just give us a call. We're more than happy to try to assist.
I think with that, is there anything else?
Yeah.
We know you're on schedule or trying to stay that, so.
do you guys have any other?
Nothing specific, but it's really nice knowing that you are so available, and we certainly have. This is not new to us.
No, I know.
You know,
Yeah.
so this is it's a wonderful service, and we hear all the time.
And
Renee
as you
making
s-
reference in conversations to questions that we put to her.
Yeah.
You come up.
And as you said, we did last year look and say, you know, are we getting the best, you know, because that's what we have to do for taxpayers. And,
Absolutely.
you know, it was good to know, all right, we're on track here, so.
Yeah, no, it's appropriate to do due diligence. I mean, we understand municipalities, you know, might do that every 3 to 5 years, just, you know, it's reasonable, taxpayers would expect it, so. But we appreciate your trust in us, and, you know, we're here out to, you know, for you whenever you need us. So
All
thank
right.
you, and
Good.
call us
I have
anytime.
extras of these, do you want any, or?
Yes,
no?
please.
You got plenty?
I'll take one.
Take
I'll
one?
take some, yeah.
And I'll leave it a couple.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
On
you.
the back of that has our
Yeah, I
board,
saw that.
so-
Yeah,
Ah.
that's why I wanted to. Thanks.
Great, thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Sign in.
Yes, we did.
Yes, they did. They were on it. Anyone else?
Sit here. You too.
Okay, next on the agenda, a request for additional driveway cut at Texas Hill.
5 minutes over, so we're good.
Yeah, we're good. I gotta just pull this up, I have it written down here.
You guys want to introduce yourself?
Chelsea?
My name's Chelsea.
Yeah.
This is Betsy Orvis, and we're here. It's not as much as for additional use, but as a continued use of our logging road and farm access. So just to sort of clarify what we're looking for, I guess. We've started renting and living at Texas Hill, let's see, like 2001, and then we bought the property in 2004. And since then, I don't have like a computer generated map, but I have kind of a map showing our 3 accesses. There's not very good on the computer. If I'd been better on the computer, I could have put something up for you. But our house is right here, which is like an 1850s farmhouse, and it's set really close to the brook and this embankment down to the brook. And so our residential driveway goes here. And then this is where my shop and now home of my studio and business will be. And this driveway access is strictly the business and so on. And then the access that's being discussed is down here. And it comes off the road onto some ledge, so it's a really good location for this. And it's also, in the past, there's where it has been used for logging, like even back in the 70s, there's some log skidder roads that go in through here and some remnants of leftover. But that's just a little history on the locations of what we're talking about.
Can you describe to me where on Texas Hill that, how far up?
Yes.
We can pull it up.
Chinese driveway.
Exactly, it's,
Exactly, yeah, 20, it's across from Texasburg Road, so you're starting to go back down the hill.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Before you
Yeah,
get to.
you're on the left
Bishop
there,
Lane.
and the shop, I think, is close, everything's sort of close
Yeah,
to the road.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Our
It's
property.
not deep, you know, it's not.
Yeah, well, a lot of, if you see from the topographic, a lot of our, I mean, this only shows the third of our property, because we have 30 acres. And so a lot of the property, or the usable property is what you can see from the road, and then it goes straight up.
The ledge and the hillside.
So, I just wanted to just give a little brief history on the driveways and sort of the process here. In 2009, we went to the town and got a permit to build the garage, and then we were permitted, and Peter Erb gave us a CO to use the garage in 2010. And have been no problems with that, and we've used it for my personal use and hobby business, hobby shop, and work on old trucks and stuff. So then on March 5th, I came down the town office to get a permit to put an addition on, so I can use my business home, which is Brent Bearing Studios. I do metal work and like sort of metal jewelry for houses is the way I look at it. But anyway, at that point, I was made aware that I needed the building permit, and then I needed to go in front of the DR. We needed to go to the DRB, so to get approval to work from home. Mitch Sipes was really helpful. He laid out the path forward for us and the paperwork, and so then we filled all that out, and then on March 26th, we received an email which Betsy has that raised questions, and I thought she could read this is where the whole discussion of the driveways came up.
So Mitch was just getting back to us about some, other issues, but he said, that said, a major concern has been brought to my attention. According to the town highway foreman, you did not receive a town approval for the second access to your property, which accesses the garage that you propose to use for your business. I'm copying the town highway foreman, Michael Anthony, on this email so you can discuss this matter with him.
And so then, sort of to just continue the history, we were a bit confused by that because we had a CO for a garage, been using it. There's a driveway that leads to a 10-foot garage door.
It's open right to the road.
Yeah, it is a 10-foot garage door. So, but anyway, we followed what had been laid out by Mitch, and Betsy went down on April 1st. And filled out paperwork with Mike Anthony, and then he came by and checked out. This was, it's about the driveway going to the garage, and then he issued a permit for that.
We have the permit that he issued, and Renee emailed to us, and he issued the permit. We worked this out with him. In his remarks, he said no culvert needed. There are 2 driveways accessing this property. Another access has been created that must be abandoned. No other access will be granted. So that access that he's speaking of that has been created that has to be abandoned is our logging road and our farm access. I run a farm based on our property. I grow cut flowers and vegetables that I sell. And so as you can see from looking at the map,
Is the third access to the right?
Yeah, it's further. It's
Yeah.
right above
kind of
the
that
8.
opening.
Yeah, and
there's
it
a slight
kind of, I'm gonna
opening.
come up. Just kind of actually, this photo shows really well that it goes in through the woods here, and then this is actually like our goat compost pile, and then there's a road that goes out this way, and there's a road that goes up by here, which on our map you can see accesses our upper meadows. So that's where the access. The road, the grade of the road is, heading down the road's going down the hill. And so the stream is right here. So when Mitch came up, he looked at it. This driveway sits directly on ledge. This sits pretty close on ledge. And so there was no need or any way to put a culvert in. And then the next driveway down, the farm access down here, that runs across also ledge on our property, so that's what makes it. I think that's why it got set up to be where people had logged in the past, because everything from here down on our property, there's a road ditch that would have to be crossed, the stone rock wall on our property, and then our property tends to be really wetter and less desirable to drive on further down the road.
If you head down, and so looking at this map, it shows the width of our property, which right here at the corner, if you were thinking about having anywhere else, this is a pretty good sight distance right here. You have ample room to see up the road and down. Anything further down, this is a pretty blind corner.
So, I mean, I think, and I don't, maybe I'm wrong, so interrupt me, but I think the reason the town gets involved in the road cuts is to minimize the number of road cuts to the road. And so I think, you know, what you're saying is if we had 3, where the farm road is that you described is the best place for it. But isn't the town sort of saying, make it work with 2?
The town is, and yes, and I believe that we hear that. What we're asking for is some flexibility in the way that this is viewed because of the nature of the property that, you know, the way that we use our land, we have, you know, about 3/4 of it is forested. Access to our woodlot, access to, you know, the land that I use for my farming. To only allow us to use our residential driveway to get to that part of our land is,
It's limiting, cause like the driveway that goes to the house between where the bank drops off.
That's the one on the left.
To the left,
Yeah.
like, that's a very narrow space, so if you were to wanna, like, say, cut a load of pulp, you know, you aren't gonna yard it up in your flower garden in the front yard. And what you're looking at here, you can see there is room on this picture to drive below to the right-hand side of my, shop currently in that photo, but the addition is going into that space. So that access was only, you know, we never, it shows you can drive by there, but that's not.
That's where the addition is going.
That's where the addition is going, and in the past, that's not where we access for logging. That's where you could, you know, drive through there with something, or we would park, you know, I parked there mainly is why those tracks are there. We had been suggested to come in our driveway and go to the right with more access, like in front of the shop. And it's not possible really because the way the ledge comes down and the way we have trees and over time a planted orchard in there on that side, that's sort of like we've built that up as a break of trees from the road, you know, in our property. So really what we don't, I guess, probably might have lost my train here. But so like as far as finding a different location, it doesn't really seem possible to do so. And then on top of that, we kind of feel like what we have been using down the road has been working for upwards of 18 years now, where we will, you know, we'll put some firewood down and log length. I'll go down, I'll cut up, you know, a bucket load in the tractor. We'll drive the tractor up to the house, dump it next to the woodshed. So we're just we're asking to figure out a way to work with the town on a kind of out of the ordinary situation on the land. And one of the reasons I think it is a little bit out of the ordinary is because it's an old farmhouse. It's not like it was, you know, set in the 80s with any zoning in mind. Our whole house is in like the setback zone of the brook, you know. So that's sort of, you have anything more to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say that we've been using this access since we moved to the property. And it's also, I'd like to sort of stress the nature or the amount of use. It's not like we're driving in and out of this constantly. You know, it might be used like a couple times a weekend while we're doing firewood or, you know, cleaning out our goat shed and driving it down to the compost, and then it might not get used for a month. It doesn't get plowed in the winter, you know, it's a strictly seasonal access, and, you know, it's been maintained and used since we've lived on the property, and nothing has ever, you know, we have not heard safety issues or concerns in any manner from the town until now, until this permit was issued. And so, you know, that's why we would like to just sort of, we would hope to clear it up, and if there's some way that we can work to, you know, make it work for everyone.
Okay.
That's what we're asking.
Any questions by the
You
board? I
talked
have some,
about-
but I'll let you
You
guys.
talked about further down and on the curb, not so ideal, right?
Well, because
because of the reason you gave. Yeah, I mean,
And also because there's sort of a big drain, or
Yeah,
there's a
I mean-
drainage that comes off the ledge towards the corner.
Sure.
And it's very wet in there.
So, aside from this, if we're just talking about the two, say, how would this work if you had to work within the two?
Well, really poorly, because like any logging or any like farm act would have to like, first we'd have to cut a whole bunch of trees to the downhill side of the shop, which is gonna then kinda, we talked to the DRB to kind of create a buffer of a zone with trees there and some fencing to break up any business storage or stuff outside of, because.
I would assume they'd want.
Well, that's
you to
what,
keep
that's what
those
we kind
trees, so
of wrote that
yeah,
into
right,
there, and
right.
so that's one reason why it won't work out so well, and the other reason is, of course, the, Google Map doesn't show very well, but there's a kind of a ledge contour, and I penciled it on here, which of course is my tiny little map, but like, there's a ledge that sort of comes down, and so there's, I know you could get in there with an excavator and you could you could fill and add and put a little drainage in here, but we're trying to kind of keep it with the natural feel of what we, because we're up in the hills, with the natural feel of the forest and the field that's around. So we didn't want to like cut into that buffer, and then if that did become our only like logging access, and say we did want to cut pulp, that means then I have to like have my business going on and have like all that, or any sort of like firewood stuff is then going to be intermingled with
So
business.
the denial said just that, but did it explain it all? I assume it didn't. It just said it was just a binary thing. Yeah. And do we have any commentary from why the denial?
Just because it's not, I think there's multiple reasons, but it's not typical to have multiple accesses, we talked about that. And so that would be setting a precedent that, we haven't approved in the past, the town. I think there's other things that they look at with multiple accesses, as far as drainage and all of those pieces. But he felt like that's not something that he could approve, because it's not. That's why he said he recommended coming to the board to discuss it.
he
because it'd be
being
more
Mike?
involved.
Mike, yeah.
Anthony, yes.
Yeah.
So
This would be
does
more
he
of a
have
policy
any-
decision.
Actual physical issues with how what is there is performing, or is it just out of the
well,
ordinary?
not to our knowledge, there was no, from what we were understood, the main issue was there was 3 close together, 2 of them were unpermitted, that's from what I understood. And so we took care of the unpermitted garage one with the permit, and then this other problem arose that we were unaware of, and so that's why we're here.
I can see that it could be a safety concern as well. I drove up there today. It's a pretty rough stretch of road on Texas Hill. I mean, you live there. It's pretty rugged land, and to have 3 accesses, one right after the other. You say it's never been plowed, but I think if it's permitted, maybe Mike has to pay attention to that.
Well, he doesn't plow it.
Well,
Right.
No.
Right.
But
I
I
mean,
guess
so I
It's
think I
something in the
said-
winter you don't typically plow.
Exactly, so I think by saying that I meant to state that it's a seasonal
Temporary.
use. And we also had offered, and we're willing to do, when we were talking to Renee about this early on, we're happy to put up a farm gate, a
Or-
fence, or, a wire fence, something that is indicative that this is not access that anyone is,
and
no
it's,
one is invited to drive on it, we're not parking cars on it, it's strictly, to drive,
Access the
tractor.
property.
To access the property, and we feel that it's very important, and it's, it, historically, it was there before we were. It may have been rougher than it is now, because we've been using it more. The property, as Chelsea mentioned, there were numerous tenants that rented the house, and then we were the last tenants before, we purchased it. And one of the tenants had the pines logged when they were there, living there, and that was in the 70s. And so that's where you can see, the skidder, there's still a skidder road that goes up through the woods. And so I guess my question would be also sort of what happens when you buy an old property that has accesses on it that, how does that work with things being grandfathered in, or, you know, I guess that's a question that has come up for me throughout this process. And
So I'll say a few things. One, so I've been on the board, I don't know, a few years. And typically the board tries not to overrule, you know, the road foreman, the commissions and things like that. So, and there's good reason for that. But that doesn't mean, you know, we certainly will listen and take everything under consideration. So, and then this is the first we've seen of this, so we won't make a decision today. And it's sort of our policy to sort of put things on the table. I don't know, maybe we'll get 20 people who say, this is totally okay, or 20 people who say this is not, so we'll get more input from everybody. We'll have a chance to talk more with Mike, I think. I haven't had a chance to go look at the site, so I'd like to do that. You know, I totally get the policy of like, hey, we try to limit road cuts because, well, the people who maintain the road have to deal with a road cut every time, even if this, you know, most road cuts, most have drainage associated with it and whatnot, so they impact the road. This may not, as you're saying. It may be, you know, on bedrock and not be an issue. So I get the idea that we want to limit road cuts, and I get the idea that the DRB is sort of saying, hey, limit it. But I also, I mean, you make a good point. If you want a log up in there, I mean, I don't see a place you're going to get a logging truck around the house. And now with your business is expanding, that makes that even a little more difficult. So I can see it as a challenge.
And there really wasn't, on the opposite side of where the business is expanding, I mean, there wasn't all that much room there. You could drive my backhoe through carefully and not like get the boom to hit the building.
Yeah.
But like, there's never been, you know, once that became a building there, you know, that driveway leads to the building, and then this has been, you know, used. And as far as concerned with the drainage, the farm access, actually the way it comes off the road, because it's just sort of, you know, it's kept so that there's no berm on the edge, all the crowned water from the road runs right into the thing and then runs into the ditch. And so it seems, you know, my maintaining that seems to sort of keep up that section of the road. And I guess I would be, like, I feel like through this process, it would have been, or it might be nice to, like, maybe just meet with Mike and Renee, or, I mean, like, I haven't physically sat at the end of our driveway with any town officials and
Yeah.
talked about any of it, so, like,
That's fair.
you know, that maybe that needs to happen.
I think that speaks to Phil's point that, you
Yeah.
know, why we're not
Right.
gonna make a decision on this thing.
Yeah,
is-
yeah.
And one question I do have, we're not holding up the DRB right now. You have
we-
your road cut to do your building addition. Okay, so
Right.
this is really separate from that. This is just, hey, we thought we had 3, now we find out we have to get this paperwork, which we didn't realize, and then during that process, we're being told, oh, well, there's only 2. And I think the other thing that I've got on my mind is, let's say you only have 2, but you want to log the property. I mean, I gotta assume there's a process to get a temporary one, if you were, you know, where you're not actually applying for one, but you've got to get up on your property and do some work for a period of time. So maybe this kind of, I don't know, could be in that situation too.
Well, I
So
guess the one question on that is, it's sort of, I mean, whether it's like log big sections, but it's a constant, like, we cut the firewood off it, so it's like
yeah.
and I guess, you know, with like, that's why we thought maybe like if we just had a, you know, like you see 3 strands of barbed wire with a fence and post in the middle, and you know, pull it out, and so that 80% of the time it looks like nothing's going on there, and then on the weekend that we're gonna do something, you peel the fence back and you drive in and out. It, like the first, you can drive into like the first 20 feet of it, and then there's enough like ledge in the middle of the road that unless you have like a all-terrain vehicle or a tractor, like you aren't,
Yeah,
it's not really,
Okay.
One other point I just wanted to make is that this map shows the width of our property, which encompasses 3 lots across the road from
almost a
us.
half, because there's
It's
another one
almost a
here.
half, so there's
Yeah.
another lot here. We own 30 acres. If we wanted to subdivide this property, I mean, I think that it is reasonable to assume that another access would have to be, I mean, if we can subdivide, we have 30 acres, it's 10 acre zoning, we could put 2 more lots in. So, I'm not saying we're going to do that, but what I'm
At all, no,
saying
no, but
is
we're just
that
using as an
we
example.
just wanna be able to
Yeah.
drive in this road to
Yeah.
get our firewood and get to our compost
Yeah,
and
I think if you were
farmland.
to subdivide it, I think the DRB would say, can you use the existing, access way? That's, yeah, they would encourage that, not that they would make that, but, cause there's reasons for it, but I think
Your
we
point is well
understand.
taken.
Yeah, I mean, I
I
think we
mean, but-
understand your point.
And the second, if the I mean, I understand the DRB would want a shared access, but it
Well,
also.
we encourage that.
Encourage
Yeah.
it, but it's
But-
also, right now, it's a business.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
so-
it's a
right, no,
business
so it
and
wouldn't
if
happen,
You can't
right.
sell a piece of land to someone and say, I mean, you probably can do anything, but I don't know, say, I'm sorry, you have to share this driveway with Burnberry Studios. I'm just raising that as a point because I feel like, we pay taxes on 30 acres, we want to maintain it as a viable, healthy woodland, healthy forest, my farmland that I'm stewarding.
Our town plan also encourages.
It does
Yeah.
encourage it, there's a couple
And-
things that
and
I
I
wrote
get-
down, I really agree with that,
Okay.
so.
So the issue isn't your road on your land, if I'm understanding this correctly. The only issue is that it joins with the town road, that's.
Exactly, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And due to the limitations of the land and how things have, the land was laid out early on, and it just so happens that those 2 spots have been taken up, and then this is still, this is a spot that, had been used in the 70s. You can see like there's still some pine mossy big chunks that are sitting there, and where the skidder went off through, and then there's a road, that goes across was cut in by that, at that point, and so to us, it's kind of interesting because we've been there since 2001, bought it in 2004, started paying taxes, and now it's 2018, and nobody ever said anything
Right.
about these multiple accesses.
If
And
we had never gone to the DRB for a permit to expand a business and add a home business, would we be sitting here right now? I don't believe that anyone would have brought this to our attention. So we just really feel like we wanna address it properly, that's why we're here. So.
So, I mean, I think, we'll take some action, and I think it'll be talking a little bit with Mike, taking a look at the site, potentially even having, whoever wants to be there, do a site visit and talk about it. So, yeah. So I think we heard you.
What a timeline.
Well, our next meeting's a couple of
June
weeks,
5th.
June 5th.
Yeah.
So, it would be ideal to be able to take some action then.
So we could
do a
schedule a
Yeah.
site visit before,
I mean,
prior to the June
right,
5th meeting.
right. But what I also heard you say, it's not holding up your DRB. So right now, and I guess Mike's probably listening, but if you got a load of firewood this weekend and drove that way, I'm not sure the police will come and arrest anybody. So, but it'd be nice to, now that the problem's come up, let's address it.
And we would like, to be there to hear any concerns and to see if there is a way that we can
Make it better.
address that,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, if there's a site visit, I'd schedule it with you,
Great,
so
yeah.
that you guys can be there and report.
All right.
Thanks
Great.
for coming.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
you.
It's so easy for me to, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Would you,
I signed it.
Oh, I agree.
Thank you.
No, I mentioned that to them though. Thank you for remembering.
so we'll just take a minute, a little rest for a second, and then, I can get myself into so much trouble because I was saying, at the site visit, if we had some blueberry muffins, that would be good. I know, I can't help it.
Al just reminded me, so I added in there about the rec commission opening. One of the rec commissioners, Heidi, has just said that she's going to leave her seat. Former rec commission, Kevin Cheney, wants to join again, so I just put that email correspondence.
Oh,
with him
okay.
So we can, do you guys feel like you need to interview him? He's already recently been on the commission.
More active than almost any.
And he's,
union
yes,
is,
and
so.
still been active all along, even though when he
Right.
wasn't, so. I just told him I didn't feel like he needed to do a formal but I
No.
would check with the board.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, yeah, we would, but would we do it at the next meeting?
We could do it,
Yeah.
we could certainly do the
Yeah.
official appointment at
But
the
he
next
wouldn't
meeting.
necessarily have to come.
I just wanted to understand
Yeah.
what you guys wanted to do for the process.
As far as I'm concerned, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to make a motion to do that,
That way we
I'm
can
all
put
right
him on
with
the
it.
spot. Say,
Right,
oh,
but
guess
don't
what,
let him
Kevin?
think about it.
You're in.
So that just got put in our packet, is that what you said?
Yeah, it was just communication. Number 5B.
You guys have long meetings.
Makes you want to enjoy the select board, doesn't it?
We've noticed.
We're working on it, we're working on,
Feels good to stand up and walk.
yeah, we're, yeah, we're a little behind there. All right, so we're good to start?
We are.
Next item on the agenda is the impact fee, okay, from RSG. So you can introduce yourself
Great.
and we've been, so we've been talking about looking at our impact fees and getting to understand them. And I was gonna ask, put you on the spot, so introduce yourself and we can talk about, the proposal. But I was gonna ask you to give us a 2-minute 101 on how impact fees work and, and how to make them work well and how we could get into trouble with them, I guess. Is that,
Sure.
all right?
Lots of ways to get into trouble, so that'll be more difficult. So I'm Jonathan Slayson, and I'm a director at RSG, and in disclosure, I live here in Hinesburg, and I'm on the DRB. Thus the comment about the long meetings. So I've been active in impact fees since 2007, and it was only about 2 years before I left the country for a while, and then returned back, and since then been very active, both in Vermont and then in Florida. And it's been primarily me within RSG, but we have others that will assist me. But within the impact fee realm, I've been involved in the national impact fee discussions, and it used to go under the name of the National Impact Fee Roundtable, but now it goes under the name of the Growth and Infrastructure Consortium. So great names.
How many meetings did it take to come up with that?
It's a crew of about 25 people in the nation. It's a very niche area, and the individual, Mike Munson, who prepared the original versions of your impact fees, he was kind of my mentor for impact fees, and so we developed some ones in the town of Bow, New Hampshire, and Williston, transportation impact fees back in 2007. Those were some of the ones that we kind of initiated that relationship and some training with. So that's kind of the background of a brief experience, and we've summarized other projects more recently, and it's been
So we
quite
have that-
active.
Yeah, we have that in our.
Yeah, it's been
packet.
quite active recently, and transportation is by and large, that's RSG's strength. And it's been more of responding to the needs of the communities to expand the area of impact fees beyond transportation. And so that's where more recently the town of St. Albans, we did kind of a full update of their 6 areas that they could engage for impact fees. And those were quite out of date. They were last done in mid-90s, and then we updated them substantially. So you asked a question about Impact Fee 101. And so Impact Fee 101 is that generally the idea is that you have a set of infrastructure within the town. And that town, we own it, we maintain it. And the idea is that any developer, any land that is developed, it creates additional need or burden on that infrastructure. And the idea is that then the rest of the taxpayers are then experiencing a reduction in standard of service or level of service, or in terms of their use or the capacity of that infrastructure has been partially reduced because of the increased demand. And so that can be used in a variety of the capital areas, be it a library, is that a new development imposes new demands, and so your books should maybe increase proportionally to accommodate a greater use of that demand. So that's an experience of a library. And then recreation, for instance, you have more users in your land, and there's standards, and they can get as esoteric as number of basketball courts per 1,000 population, or you can do numbers of X amount of improved recreation land per 1,000 population. And so recreation is a very common one for impact fees. And fire and police, obviously, and that's been here. So the idea is that any additional growth or development and employees or residents coming into our community would impose additional burden on the existing infrastructure. So the idea is that you have a variety of ways to remedy that. One is that you could put a property tax on everybody to pay for new infrastructure.
Added property tax.
Added property tax. Raise the property tax to pay for new infrastructure that then everybody would enjoy, as well as the new residents and your existing residents. Or there's special assessment districts, there's tax incremental financing, and so there's different measures of different ways. Now, impact fees kind of evolved in the mid-'80s as federal dollars started to deteriorate, particularly for transportation and wastewater and water systems. And so impact fees came about by saying, let's look at, if we have our current standard today and we're generally okay with it, then if new development were to add on top of that, and we see suddenly that we need to add new capacity to our system, the logic prevails that why doesn't the new development pay for that marginal increase in capacity? The challenge then becomes is that not all capacity is maybe like library books, where it could be just scaled proportionally. You might have some thresholds in it, where if you build a new, let's say we widen the 116 to 4 lanes, suddenly you have a lot of extra capacity there that may not all be responsible for one development. And so there's some step processes, some thresholds there. And so wastewater and water are also substantial, is that you wouldn't just incrementally widen your pipes 1 inch when you dig up the whole facility. You would go out there and plan for what is your 50, 100-year need, and then widen those pipes. And then then you would...
It can't always be aimed directly at just a particular development, or right? That's what you're saying.
You would then look at that capacity increase, that marginal increase, and proportionally allocate what portion of it is responsible for the unit of growth that you're expecting within a time horizon. And so the typical in Vermont 10-20-year horizon is what's used for most of the time, and you would identify a level of growth that would go forward for that time period. You look at your current standards of service. You'd say, what would be our expected need to accommodate that level of growth? And like I said, there's some capacity, some infrastructure like water, wastewater, some other things. You might actually say 20 years growth, we actually, that's going to just bump us up. We're going to just need to make the major investment. And that's when we have to think about, do we actually bite the whole 100-year but only prorate a portion of that capacity for that next 20 years of growth? So at each of the impact fee capital items, you can do that. You basically look at your level of growth, you look at the capacity that they would, the demand that they would impose on your existing capacity, grow that out and say what new capacity you need. And then it's typically a simple formula is that you have your cost of your new capacity on your numerator and your cost or the number of new growth units you have on your denominator. And simply it's then a proportion is that whether it's people or households, you get X number of dollars per household, and that's the way it's parsed out.
And that money is put aside
into separate accounts.
Account,
the auditing and accounting process is not explicit in the Vermont statute, but it is clear you have to expend the dollars within a 6-year horizon. And the idea is that typically the cost of the projects that you use for impact fees are inclusive of preliminary engineering and design. So you can always spend the money on getting the project forward, even if not getting the excavators out.
Okay. And if you don't spend it, it goes back.
It goes back.
Yeah.
Most communities have not had that problem.
Yeah. And, I mean, obviously, new development, they're gonna pay taxes like everyone else.
That's right.
So that's sort of assumed. So the impact fees typically are for capital improvements.
Not maintenance, that's right.
Right, and or if we decided, I don't know, with this amount of development, we need 2 more police officers, would there's that potentially go under an impact fee? Or if we needed 2 rooms, we needed to enlarge the police department or buy a vehicle, which of those?
More of the latter half of
The-
that.
the other
Is that
two.
Not the salary component, but
Right.
if they need equipment, if they need space, if they need vehicles, whatever, all
Yeah.
those other pieces, if they need a roof over their head.
Yeah,
So all of those elements would be capital items, and there is no Vermont definition, but typically $500 to $1,000 is your capital item limit. Is that anything below that is more ongoing
Oh, right, okay,
cash
yeah,
flow
yeah,
expenses
right,
versus
right.
something you might
yeah,
budget
there's
for.
some limit.
Yeah.
And so we need to identify sort of what we expect we would need to do.
That's right.
Then we would pass the ordinance, and then we would collect the money if anybody develops,
That's right.
and put it in our account, and then at some point Renee would say, well, we're gonna have to build a new addition on the police station. Here's what we have for impact fees to apply toward it.
Right, and there's the other component of it, is that your capital budget. So the Vermont League and Communities and Cities and Towns were here, is that your capital budget needs to be identify where impact fee dollars will be
Okay.
spent.
Yeah,
And then there's also an element of credits, and that's what the idea is that, let's say a developer has property today, they're paying property taxes today, and so they deserve some right to the future capacity because they've already been property taxpayers. And so there's a credit that we calculate that basically negates the fact of double payment,
okay.
so you don't get in that problem.
So they're paying tax on their property even though they're not impacting that service.
Right.
So
they're currently
they get a little
contributing to
credit
things.
for it.
That's right.
All right, well, that's helpful for me. I mean, it's sort of what I thought. It's good to
Mm-hmm.
get it down.
Chittenden County, by and large, there's a few in Franklin County, but it's very limited to the kind of northwestern area of Vermont that's been doing impact fees. And some states don't do it, Massachusetts, New York, but Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine have been doing it in the northeast. And then a lot of the southern states really kind of kicked it into high gear.
And the proposal you have is for the fire and police.
That's right. And so that's what Renee had reached out to, I think, Alex and to others and said, who's doing this work in the state? And so I'm happy to put this proposal to you all to consider. And the idea is that the fire and police are clearly, they're the older ones, they're the only ones that would require, I think, it'd be valuable to update. I think there were, it'd be a good conversation to have is to understand how the revenue has manifest over time. I think there's an approach, particularly for the fire, that I think I would take a different road on, if you will. And so it would be more explicit about what the revenue expectations might be for this.
And I mean, I think other areas we were looking at, although, so we have water and wastewater, which to me seems like more pending, at least now. So for water, if we bring on, we have no water. If we bring on water, we have to add capacity in our system for treatment, plus the added cost of a well and all that. But we have allocation fees now,
That's right.
which do they negate
It's a
impact
complementary.
fees?
It's a substitution system. It's
Right.
a one or the other, and I'm not close enough to understand how and what the fee magnitude looks like here and how they've been developed, but most likely it is some function of we are either forecasting this we either prepaid and we're paying ourselves back. And so hopefully there's some of that calculation happening, is that we have a cost and some unit of growth, and that's the hookup fees. And so it's a very similar process, but Sometimes it's more of a cash flow basis versus some is a revenue bond or some infrastructure that we built excess capacity and now we're paying ourselves back for. There's elements of there's a lot of flexibility is that if the town were to incur like a revenue bond and pay up front for a lot of capacity, you can pay yourself back for 20, 30 years and collect impact fees because you have excess capacity in the system. So water is very much in that way. It's commonly done.
So we have the proposal, I
Yeah.
mean, we've, I think, looked at it. Is there a particular action we're moving forward, or this?
No, I think this was just one, where typically you want to review a few proposals at a
Yeah.
time, and so this is one. I just wanted to give an opportunity for you to really be able to talk to Jonathan and get an understanding of what the process looks like,
And if we were to move forward, what's the timing? It's probably in there, I didn't look at
There
it
isn't.
Oh, okay.
These are things that are hurry up and wait, is that you can do a lot of things up front. To be honest, the town of Williston recently, we've had over way more meetings than we anticipated in terms of honing in on what the project list looks like, because that's the numerator, the cost of the projects. And particularly with some elements like recreation and transportation, it's often not a straight line standard extrapolation of the data. It's not that you just linearly expand the books. And so it takes a long time sometimes to negotiate on the project mix. But in terms of if you were ready to initiate the project, we could move forward, and typically then it would be a kickoff meeting with however many people you want to bring around the table. It would clearly be, if it's both fire and police, it would be bringing all the different elements, all the representatives of them together. We would try to understand what are the current standards of service, how do we operate. The fire is an interesting one given the St. Michael's ambulance issue.
So does that fall under the fire?
Yeah, we explicitly put it under, there's an emergency
I saw
bullet
that,
point there. Right now, if you look at the fire calls, how many percentage are the emergency EMT?
Yeah.
The vast majority.
Yeah.
So
In other words, we wouldn't need a separate one right now.
I think right now we could roll it in.
Yeah.
And I think that would be the most logical, is rather not have a separate emergency one. The only question would be whether there'd be a separate building or whether we're prepared with that data today. Because we might need to, we might not have all the data as to what the costs would be for the town to actually implement our own EMT type system. So in the absence of that, it might just be the fire response for now. But we're able to, I think, respond and move quickly on all that, and then there will be a number of meetings, typically with the planning commission. Is the main board that are being the ones
And then
to facilitate.
Then you come up with whatever proposals, or none, but usually something, and then they would be integrated into some ordinances that we would go through our typical process.
You have an existing ordinance that would be amended.
Just amended, okay.
Unless there were new capital items that could be introduced at some point.
Okay.
Amended that way, but then it would be an amendment as well.
All right. Well, thanks for answering my questions. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions.
Still digesting it for the most part, but having this conversation, having this document in front of us, the proposal that you provided, presumably, is very helpful, obviously.
Make a little more sense.
Yeah, it's a huge topic. It's a very important topic. It's one that needs to be entered in and managed correctly for the outcomes. I'm thinking outcomes here for the whole thing. As I look at Chief Barber right behind us, it's an important topic, and I'll have more as I work through it. But knowing you're available is good.
Yeah, and very available. And then Renee can contact me at any point, answer any questions. By all means, it's I didn't know where this would go and how serious the update concept is. So obviously just keep me in touch and we can answer any questions that you might have.
I mean, it does seem like something, for me, over the last few years, I don't think I was involved at all in the beginning when we put these in place. But, you know, we're looking at development, we're looking at costs, and several times I said, well, we'll have impact fees that'll help, but, you know, I
think they
don't
definitely
know
need to
that.
be updated.
Yeah, right, I don't
Yes.
know that that's you know, we need to develop, make sure we have the appropriate impact fees, whatever's fair for everybody, not just the people in town, but the developers too, I guess, you know, it needs to be
That's where the
done
select
well.
board- The
Yeah.
select board will have that ultimate call at the end, is what's typically happening is the cost of infrastructure is just so expensive. And what's happening is that while it might be logical and fair on paper, but the fees have been coming up quite high in terms of political comfort. And so that's where the select board, you have that last call to say, although the math says we have the ability to charge X, we might want to lower that, and that we can have that discussion, but on the end of the day, that difference will be made up on the back of the existing tax base.
Right.
Wherever that would come from.
Yep.
So I have two questions. You mentioned, Phil had asked about allocation fees and impact fees. Do you not have both together? If we institute a more robust system of impact fees, would we drop the allocation fees?
I don't know right now. I need to look at
But is that a
how-
possibility?
It is a possibility that it could be a substitute, or you leave your current system as is and not touch it with an impact fee on the wastewater water system.
Okay. So my other question is, when people talk about how Williston's taxes are so low and they did so well with their development, impact fees is what comes up. That's how they did that. Is that correct?
The sales tax is by and large the largest element of that comment.
Okay.
The impact fees are about $700 a trip, which in 2007 were calculated to be about $2,400 a trip. So the select board said, let's not charge that much. So they made a political decision to, at that point, be the highest, that they didn't want to be 4 times the highest, or almost there. They made that decision, but it's definitely, the town has benefited from that money, and it has not slowed the pace of development. I know there's always a concern about some communities are saying we want to encourage a certain amount of growth, and we don't want to slow that or jeopardize that or shift it to another community, and impact fees have by and large show that there's certain land uses that are susceptible to impact fees, and accessory dwellings, affordable housing, laundromats, daycare centers, and those are things that are often waived or exempted from fees. But
Affordable housing.
by and large, the other development that is planned for or anticipated, it's a cost that they're anticipating and they're rolling into the financing.
Yeah, okay. All right, this is good, yeah, I mean, this is the right direction we want to move, at least get a
Thank you for
good,
your expertise.
solid understanding, yeah.
I think if you guys have any questions, you can just email them to me and then I can.
Okay.
direct them to-
It's gonna be a long discussion. A long process,
Long process.
I would say.
Doesn't have to be though, does it?
Have to be.
The math side of it is the easy part. It's the politics
Oh,
side
interesting,
that
yeah.
comes down to it, and there's perceptions of fairness. There's all these other things that kind of factor into it. But,
I mean, I think we see there's, it's appropriate to be looking at this, and we do have a need more than likely, I think. And then, so if we can be presented with good data, I would guess the town could make a good decision, a fair decision for everybody.
and there's our neighbors
Are doing it
are
too.
doing it as well.
Yes, right, so.
So that's the thing, is
Yeah.
this isn't happening in a vacuum.
Right.
This is
South
everywhere.
Burlington's updating theirs, Williston's updating theirs, and Colchester's considering it, Winooski's doing it. Yeah.
Children?
To some degree.
They're updating their fire.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
All right,
for the
thank you,
opportunity.
yeah, thanks, Jonathan.
We're just gonna win the big ball and.
Yes.
Keep dreaming there,
All
buddy.
right, well, did you win the
That's all right.
Calcutta?
I did not win the Calcutta. No, I didn't. But I know who did.
He's still here tonight.
I know. I'm still here tonight. John, my big check.
Great, well, thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you very
thank you.
much for coming out.
Next item on the agenda, you're all set?
I'm good.
All right.
Thank you.
But, this would come under town administrator report, but while you're here,
Yep.
have we gotten some people who want to?
We have.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I put them in your packet.
Oh, I didn't
actually,
see
just
that.
tonight.
Okay,
Or, before the meeting, a little while.
2 minutes before?
No, I think it might have been like 3. but
Okay.
no, yeah, maybe an hour.
All right, so I was just, I'm not sure. Yeah, this is good, and do you think we'll be ready at the next meeting, I would guess, to sort of,
So I think
Kick
there
it
was
off, huh?
4 people.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, yeah, 4 people that have expressed interest.
good, yeah.
What are we talking about?
The ambulance committee.
Got it.
Great. All right, so I just thought, since you're here, I was just curious to see how that's moving along. Good. So maybe next meeting, we could have a discussion on it. We'll see who they are, and that's great. Encourage anybody else who is, got any experience or is really, concerned about doing a good process. So, all right. Great, thanks,
All
Al.
right. Thank you, Al.
Yep.
Next item is the granting the easements
Yes.
on Shelburne Falls Road. This is some more of the 116 intersection, adding turning lanes, which is going to be a 2-year project. And now it's down Shelburne Falls Road, some of the drainage that they're going to need to put in apparently goes on some of our property.
Yeah. And just the road itself, as far as they need both temporary during the construction and permanent easements.
And so we have that easement language that the state has given us, and you've had it reviewed,
Yes.
and there were some questions.
So, I've talked to them about it, actually working with them on, there's other landowners along that they're working with to gather these same easements. There's some that are a little more challenging. I had a site visit out today with one of the landowners. So they are just doing this process and doing the utility relocation piece of it.
It's quite a big project.
It's a very big
And
project.
I think I saw they gave us a couple maps, and it wasn't
Yes.
really clear on the maps.
It's very
but
busy.
then I think I found on Shelburne Falls Road where they're talking about the drainage ditch, which I think there was some question about, like, who owns that drainage system once they're done with it, because it goes on to outside. It goes outside of their own easement. So it's going to be a complicated project.
Right, absolutely.
So I guess at this point we wait to get some.
You certainly don't have to make a decision tonight. This is just to be talking about it, looking at it. And if you have questions, send those to me so
Okay.
I can direct them to the state.
So there was a 9D was in there, and that's a map of Shelburne Falls Road. And I think that I didn't spend a lot of time looking at it, but it looked like that was the area. There's, what's the name of that road there?
Oh, on,
Pleasant
Pleasant View.
View Lane. There's a culvert going across, some drainage coming over from 116, and then it looks like it crosses Shelburne Falls Road there too.
Didn't we repair that?
which one?
The
Well,
culvert coming
That's
across?
part of this whole thing, is they're gonna do a box culvert, I think, there.
But we didn't
As
ever
part of this.
replace that?
We didn't do it because it's going, I mean, we did some
Some
work
work
there.
there,
We did
yeah.
definitely work and, repaired a lot of it, but knowing that that was part of this.
Okay.
This entire intersection realignment is.
I wasn't aware it was part of it, but.
Yeah, and is Mike aware of what they're looking to do here? Do you know?
Yeah, I did send it to him and looked
Okay.
at it, so, I know he had a couple questions on something, anyway, so there's some things that we still need to clarify
Okay.
completely. So the state is going to have the condemnation hearings starting on June 20th, so that if there's any that are left outstanding, there'll be a hearing about those with any of the landowners.
Okay.
And then there's another additional date of June 27th for another condemnation
So
hearing.
if we don't make a decision before then, we end up being in the condemnation?
We'll be in part of the
Okay.
hearing as well.
All right. Maybe instead of $800, we can argue $850.
There you go. So,
All right, well, it'd be good to have Mike, give us some, that he's looked at it and that, there's nothing, significant to argue about, I guess.
yeah.
Is there any other questions on this? Does that sound all right to
That's
you?
fine.
All right. And then the audit engagement letter.
Yes.
Was that in our packet? I don't
It was.
remember. Oh,
Should be.
not sure I saw that, but,
I didn't see it.
yeah.
It's not? Well, let me,
Let's see it in the
all right.
It's not,
Huh, well, let me just go back to my box. It's just the standard, letter that they've done each year to, officially, we're going to.
Re-engage them.
Re-engage them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, was it last meeting? We had the report from last
Right.
year.
Oops.
So, I don't know do we, should we have that letter?
I have it here, I actually have the,
Is it something we have to sign?
one you and I sign, or, so this is the actual letter, and then the signature. So what you've done is, you make a motion in the past to the Fothergill's Gallon Valley as the auditors for the, FY19 budget ending June 30th, 2019, for year ending June 30th.
Since we haven't had a chance to look at it, I mean, potentially we could have a motion that says we approve it and allowing myself and Renee to sign it,
Yeah.
if we find it.
can't throw it up on the screen?
No, I didn't put it in there. Look. So I think it's in my.
You're not gonna read it on the screen, I don't think, maybe, but,
Right.
could we wait till next time too?
We could certainly.
All right, so why don't we do that, yeah.
Yep, yep.
And we'll get it in our packet, and,
Absolutely.
it's pretty, we do it every year. And
Yeah,
it's- I think
the
as
same
long as
language.
I've been here, it's the same firm.
So should we do it now?
We could,
Would that be?
I mean, I typically wanna look at it closely
Yeah,
before I
I
sign it.
think it's totally fine to
Yeah.
do it June 5th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
all right.
There it is.
Do we wanna, we have an opening in the, rec committee and, potential, I thought I had it on here.
Yeah, it's-
Potential, applicant who's been on before.
Basically been on the whole time.
Yeah.
But not officially.
Motion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be okay.
Yeah, when's the end of the term?
It's Heidi's term, which she was just reappointed this year, so it's the January, it's the 3-year term that started January 1st of 2019, so ending.
2022,
2021, 122,
22,
right?
yeah.
So I'll make a motion appointing Kevin Cheney to the Recreation Commission for a term ending on 1/1/22.
2, second.
Okay, and so I think Jen gave us a letter on this.
It's fine.
I'm assuming there's nobody else out there that's also pounding the pavement, that anybody know of.
No, to your question, but do we, or, so we would still have an opening? It looks like, to your point, like if.
Oh, there's still another
Yeah,
opening.
if there
Okay.
was.
Okay,
Is there still another opening on there?
Yeah, I have it
Okay.
listed as there's already open seat plus
Okay.
Heidi's seat.
Okay.
Oh.
So there's-
Okay.
So I don't have Heidi off the list, yeah, so I
Yeah.
will
all right,
make that change.
okay. Anything else? So we have a motion.
Would you?
All those in favor, did you get the motion?
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye? All right, thank you for volunteering.
Yeah.
And I tell you, those fields are looking fantastic now, you know, they really
Better if
are.
we could get on them, but
Yeah, well, I saw a bunch of kids out there on Sunday, so,
it's amazing how well it drains.
yeah.
The one that's
You had
actually
said that
mature,
before,
it's-
yeah.
It's,
Jen
I've
commented
heard-
how they're dry, they're very dry.
I've
out
heard
there.
most recreation departments have had to cancel most games, but not here.
But
I
Lyman
know-
Meadows wasn't that way.
Yeah.
That one gets,
I saw trucks
That
out
was-
there
Apparently the
today.
softball field
softball field's good,
the other
Yeah.
day, Monday.
but playing ultimate on that soccer field, ooh, it's.
Oh,
sloppy.
it's wet.
I saw a bunch
Sure.
of trucks there when I was driving by today. Do you know?
Where?
At the field.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh.
I'm sure there was some kind of,
Yes, they were doing something,
Yeah.
something that they should have been doing.
Yeah.
Wasn't that nobody was doing donuts?
oh, that's good.
That's good,
I
yeah.
think in the CDU
Alright.
girls lacrosse are gonna practice there tomorrow.
Oh, good,
Or have
I
a
haven't heard that.
game or something.
yeah.
yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Because
says
they
their
can't
fields
access
are-
their
yeah.
field
Oh.
right now.
Well,
And
you know
so-
what's ultimately that's what it's there for,
Yeah,
is to be used, and
great,
it's just unfortunate we haven't been able to get out there and do
more, yeah,
applications that you need to
Yeah.
keep it. But that's kind of the way it goes when it rains
Yeah.
every single day.
yeah. Town administrator report?
Yes. So the postings have been lifted on all the roads now.
Ah.
Just this week, it was a longer mud season
Yeah.
than normal, just because of the weather and the unending.
Tom's point.
Yes. We have, still have an opening in the highway department, and we have an interview tomorrow for an
Oh, good.
applicant. So, hopeful.
Are
The
you
waste-
involved in that process?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Wastewater upgrade planning committee.
Oh, next Wednesday?
Gonna be meeting
Yeah.
next Wednesday, so they finally heard back from the state and, on, what they're requiring as far as the redundancy.
For the SBR.
Yeah, so it sounds like they are making that requirement, so that's going to, that gives them the information they need now for presenting the options.
So they're gonna make the requirement for redundancy, and what gives them the right, I would say, to make us put in a redundant system?
Well, they permit it. I mean,
I understand
yeah,
they permit
right.
it, but I mean, at what level do they have limits on
Our
what they can
consultant
require?
engineer has been going back and forth with them and really.
Well, we'll have that discussion, I
Yeah,
think,
that'd be good
Wednesday.
to have.
I mean, particularly if that appears,
In case
you
one
know,
doesn't work,
if-
you can still get to work.
if for
Right.
some reason if that solution is the one that is the best one without the redundancy, and now it's thrown it out, then I think we'll, raise a stink, and we get Bill Lippert or somebody here.
I mean, I really do
Yeah.
think that somebody needs
Yeah.
to stand up.
There
Yeah,
are examples in other states of these type of systems working without the,
yeah,
that
and in this state,
function really
you know,
well, so.
so,
So there's still a path that we could possibly push back.
so, I think, and we would, let's see if that, I have no idea, I know there's 3 options, let's see if that, we can ask that question.
right.
I think that Wayne would help us with that,
Yeah.
all right?
And then with, Frank's retirement, we want to think about a, way to honor him. So, be thinking about that and
Definitely.
talking about, just some
Yes.
special things that we could do.
Because that'll come up pretty quick.
Yeah,
That celebration has started, wasn't he wasn't he in the parade as the Grand Marshal recently? Last
Well,
year, a year before? Was it
no,
last year?
he,
When was that? For the 4th of July parade. I
Was it?
talking about.
I don't remember that.
I thought he was. Oh.
Thanks for ruining it.
I know.
Budget status report is in your packet.
Yeah, got to
too.
look at that.
Yeah.
I don't know, it might be, I don't know if anybody, I noticed sand or salt was up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It looked like most everything seemed to be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they should be at about 82 or 83%,
Yeah.
roughly. Obviously,
Yeah.
some are high because, well, some you pay right up front,
Right,
so.
yeah,
Other than the highway,
yeah. Health insurance is definitely up,
yeah,
but
I
it's
saw that.
it's
Yeah,
changes
that
and
shifts.
shifts, and so, you know, someone just coming on that hasn't been onto a family
Yeah.
plan is a shift, so.
other, was there anything in particular that you saw that was a surprise?
I think, I mean, those were the main things, so the salt, which other towns were even much higher than we were, so, that's.
I think it was like
just
20,000 more than,
Yeah,
it was
I mean,
60 and now it's
that's
up to
the
80
weather
something.
thing.
When I was up at the garage today, I saw there's still some salt in there, and I wondered if that's because we have that nice.
Yeah, I mean,
covering for it.
absolutely,
So
that's,
that's-
we didn't, we were able to not have as much because we were able to buy more in bulk, I think, too.
So I'm thinking that's probably gonna save us money in the long run.
Right, right.
Sell it to other towns that need it.
There were some
For a big
unexpected
price.
things, like with the tool cat, so, as
Yeah.
far as buildings and facilities repair and
I
maintenance
saw that,
costs,
yeah.
that was up because of that.
I saw the utilities on the new highway garage were high too.
But we knew that, so
Yeah.
that was based on the,
Oh,
the
okay, I was-
the
yes,
regular
okay,
years,
yeah.
the old version, so we
Yeah.
budgeted,
More.
for this next.
So I guess we'll see if our guess was
Yeah,
close.
yeah, so, so that one was expected. And we're continuing to work, so I've been working with, our electrical engineer as for the garage and getting a comparison from Starksboro, so met out there, he got, understood that really is a very similar one.
Okay,
So I've been getting their utility bills and send them to him, and he's kind of doing an evaluation to see, make sure we're on track.
all right.
And main hall floors, they were done
Yeah,
recently.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our roof is gonna be inspected and replacing the slate, sometime at the end of this month. He's waiting for weather to, again, that weather thing. VCAM, one thing I think I shared with you guys, but, we became aware of, I guess they hadn't thought about that issue when we moved to the Wednesdays, is they can't have our
Live.
select boards live on their channel, their TV
right,
channel during our meeting. And so it's for the folks who've been relying on that and watching the TV channel, they aren't seeing us live. They can still live stream on the computer.
Right, they can,
So-
and then there will be they can live stream and they can always see it the next day,
Right.
doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's not on the TV screen.
Yeah. And then just a reminder, when Tyler Billingsley was here and talked about the asset management
Right.
plan and the sidewalk plan, he's waiting for any comments. So if you guys have any comments,
Yeah.
if you could get those to him by the end of the week.
Okay.
So then he can
He can
just
finish it.
finish it up into the state and get that going.
And, I think we looked at that and there were some items on there that, we probably would be good to sort of say, here's something we want to work on soon and,
right.
some sort of prioritize it.
Right, yeah.
So-
But if you have any comments related to what
Okay.
he's done there, if you could just get those to me and I can send them to him by the end of the week or whatever. If you have questions for him. And that's all I had.
Is the sidewalk in along between Jiffy and?
So that is still, again, waiting for the weather.
Yeah, I figured that was the case.
So some of the poles have been set,
Yeah.
but it's just too wet out there for
I-
Parker to come and start,
I assume that
the
that's what
construction
was-
piece, so,
That was holding us up.
yep.
All right,
Ready to go.
next item is select board forum.
I don't know, I was gonna say, I know you have
The
something.
Calcutta turned out to be a great success. Everybody had a really good time by all accounts,
Yeah.
and we raised $6,500 or so for the
Jeez.
fields.
Good, nice.
We had a $1,000 bid for ball number 100.
Really?
Really?
$1,000.
Wow.
Wow,
It was pretty crazy. So
well, that's pretty well.
yeah, it was a lot of
So
fun.
that money goes into general fund and is.
To rec.
How does that work?
Basically, we're kind of, I'm not gonna say we're setting it aside, but the goal now is dugouts and a storage / concession building.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's
But
fantastic.
that night I had several offers of help of labor
Yeah.
to build these things.
Oh, yeah, that'll be it. And
So
So
really,
you're on a roll here. Yeah.
oh,
this
we're
is
on a
great.
huge roll.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's
This is
it's
great.
pretty incredible what's happened. So
So,
Yeah.
so that's money in hand, right? Does that mean that a project could start right away? Well, what's the process for putting?
kind of put Jen, the recreation coordinator. She really wants a storage building, and we kind of need one for the mower at very least, even if it's a temporary something. So she's working on that.
Is there like a DRB process for that, or is it just
Yeah.
to do
For
it?
for a building,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
would be
Yeah,
temporary storage.
double check on that.
I guess
Right.
let me
Less than
refine
10
my
by 10
question.
It wouldn't be,
Right.
I don't think.
But if it's, the question
Has
is,
it been-
if it's a temporary, like a
Yeah.
pod.
Yeah.
Had-
right.
I mean, I have my personal thoughts about a pod to protect
Mm-hmm.
an access as not being a building, but who am I to
We're
say?
gonna double check on that.
But the DRB process that we've already gone through didn't already say that we can do that. We have to go back and go through some process.
I have no idea
You're
about
not sure.
temporary.
No, I'm talking about permanent.
Permanent, we have not, it's on the plan, but there's nothing specific.
Right.
And we don't have a permit for a particular building. I don't know if dugouts would qualify as a building,
Right.
but, I mean,
But with the storage structure, could that be built this year? I guess is the question.
potentially,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't, really, there's been no quotes gathered.
Yeah.
I need to kind of check out of that process of figuring out what they need for
Yeah.
that
And what I'm
facility.
hearing is Jen is driving that?
And the recommendation.
Hopefully the rec committee
Yeah.
Okay.
is driving what they want. We definitely need storage for that more
Yeah.
and the other equipment associated with maintenance.
Yeah.
Because we had Brad Wayner's building,
Yeah.
and that obviously vanished since last year, so.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All right,
So-
anybody else on select board forum? So I just, was trying to keep the VLCT discussion short, but on the safety thing, I'll give, Mike kudos. I don't think I mentioned this last time, but for Green Up Day, we used to throw the trash in the trucks. And it was hard work. And, Mike said, no, this year, I don't know if we did it that way last year, but this year, just throw it on the ground in that big building, and we'll bucket load it in. And you needed a ladder to get in and out of the trucks, and it was unsafe.
It was a safety issue.
So it was a
Yes,
safety
right.
issue.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's fantastic.
There is-
Good idea.
There is total
Yeah.
awareness from everything
Yes.
people are thinking
So
about.
that's.
Were they there that day and had people throw it in the loader, or did they just
No.
throw it in
We
the
just
building and then scoop it up?
he said, put it in a pile here, put that in a pile here, put that in a pile here, and
Okay.
they scoop it up and put
Yeah.
it in. So,
Perfect.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And because for years we were going up and down the ladder and
Sure.
from the vehicles trying to toss up stuff, and
Yeah.
Yes.
it's just an accident waiting
Oh,
to
yeah,
happen.
definitely.
So, so that's all I think I had on the select board forum. So next item is minutes. So we have several minutes here. We'll just go, I think, just do them all individually and see how quick we can get through this, if it's appropriate.
Yeah.
First one is the minutes from 4/17. That one, there's something to it. It's a while ago. There's a couple pages. So we need a motion to,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended if needed for us on April 17th, 19.
Second.
all right? And I've had a chance to review it. Has anybody got any comments? Doesn't sound like it. The only note I have, and it's not for the minutes itself, is this was when we had the audit report, and it's on the first page. Number 2, they said, hey, we should, there should be a formal investment policy by the Peck Estate. And I'm not sure if anybody communicated that, and whether maybe that's Missy or us, or,
Yeah,
but, that's worth telling that committee
yeah.
that was a recommendation by our auditors.
And I don't know if this needs to be in there or not, but I joined this meeting after that discussion. I
Oh.
joined it for the finalized water source development agreement.
Do we want to add that in there?
Okay.
All right, so with that,
After that,
You did, because I did these minutes, I'm
Oh.
curious.
Yeah, because I wasn't here I had a conflict that night, so I
Yes.
wasn't here for the
Right.
review audit.
Okay.
But you
Discussion.
were here for finalized water
Correct.
source? Okay.
That's where I
Okay,
started.
thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So with that change, all those in favor of the minutes for April 17th, say aye.
All right,
Aye. Next, minutes from 4:30.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from April 30th, 2019, pending any amendments, revisions.
That's just the one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was just an executive session.
Yep.
Any comments on that?
So, you want a second first?
All right.
So I have one. Do we want to include attendance? We didn't on this one or the next one?
I thought we did. You know, I looked at that. This one was, it doesn't say that who was there.
Correct.
Right.
So we had the candidate.
So it was the select board, Renee, as I recall, and the candidate one or A or two or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I think that'd be appropriate.
I think so too.
All right. So with that change,
And what do we want to do, just a candidate, or
Yeah.
what do we want to say there? Does anybody
will
have an
people
opinion?
know who the candidates are at this point?
Well,
Public?
not for the purpose of this at this date.
No,
we don't.
that's true.
So
So, yeah.
these meetings don't
And
reflect
a final candidate.
a final candidate. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. That's what we'll do.
One of two final candidates.
One of two final candidates.
All right. That sounds good.
Yeah,
All those in favor say aye.
all right.
Aye. Next
I'll
is,
make a motion
The
for
next
May
day?
1st, 2019. Second, Tom?
I'll second it
Yeah.
with the same amendment,
all
Perfect.
right,
only it's final candidate number 2.
yes.
Sure, you want to do 1 and 2?
A.
Okay.
Whatever, either
A and
way,
B?
no, with a final candidate.
Final candidate
With a final
one,
candidate.
and then final candidate B.
Sure.
All right.
Hey,
Final candidate A.
so you have, we made them.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye, so that's pretty simple, and then we have one more
Make a
that's,
motion to approve the select board minutes from May 6, 2019, as amended if needed.
second.
Oh,
All right,
bring it
second
primarily
by
this time.
Mary. All right,
holding
comments? I had one very small comment, page 2, about the 4th or 5th thing down. Tom asked if this would blah, 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 blah. Alex said there will need to be adjustments.
Need 2 adjustments.
So pretty minor. Does anybody else have anything there? They were well done. All right, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye. That's it for that. Now we need a motion to approve the warrants.
Make a motion to approve the warrants and include
Including
payroll
payroll.
as submitted by the town clerk,
Second.
which are
We have
here
right-
somewhere.
right behind
Right
me.
here.
Yeah.
treasurer.
Town treasurer, thank you. That's right.
Any
Clerk doesn't have
comments?
Anything to do with that, honestly, although it is the same person.
All those in favor say aye.
All right,
Aye.
Aye. All right, do we have anything else on the agenda?
when do we meet next?
Oh, June 5th, and that's a Wednesday.
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 And, yeah, I'll be here, so.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you heading out?
I'll be gone the following one, but I'll call in, so,
Very good.
to the Cape,
Yep, as you normally.
assuming we have some good weather. All right, so we need a motion to adjourn?
Weather's a 4-letter word this year.
And it's rain?
It's also cold.
Yeah, cold and rain. 2 4-letter
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right,
Aye.
Aye, okay, thank you very much.
Gracie.
Thanks.